We're good? Okay, we're going to go ahead and start our meeting tonight. We want to welcome you to our City Council meeting on June 19th, 2024. I will recognize our mayor who is absent and unable to attend tonight. Councilmember Carlson is joining us by phone right over here. You will hear him but not see him. I think everybody's here. Otherwise, we will begin with an invocation by Councilmember Garrett, followed by a pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Beck.
Our kind Father in heaven, we bow before thee this evening, grateful for the opportunity that we have to gather as council and city staff and community members. We're thankful for this city that we get to live in, and we're thankful for the wonderful camaraderie we have with the citizens and such a great community to live in. We're thankful for the many blessings we enjoy, especially the weather lately that we've been able to enjoy. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to celebrate our freedoms in this country. We pray that thou will bless us to not take it for granted. Help us now as we meet that we can discuss these items cordially and have a productive evening. We pray for those in the city who are struggling in any way, that they will be blessed. And we pray for these things now in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We'll begin with our public forum. We have 5 people that have signed up to speak. This is where members of the public are welcome to speak on an independent topic or ask any questions. We would, right up here. Are you speaking on any of our action items or a different topic? Okay, those of you that have signed up to speak and you intend to comment on the agenda item regarding the rezone, we just ask that you wait until that item in the agenda to speak at that time. That being said, is there anyone who has signed up to speak during the public forum that would like to speak to a topic not on our agenda tonight? Okay, it doesn't appear to be the case. Okay, let's move on to our consent agenda, and we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items as they are presented.
Second.
Okay, the consent agenda there's been a motion to approve by Councilmember Garrett and a second by Councilmember Beck. Councilmember Carlson.
Yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to our action items. Item number 4. This is a consideration of a resolution to award the contract for the South Mapleton Waterline Well to Tank project. Rob?
Yes, thank you. So this project is to, right now there's the line that goes from the Crab Canyon well on the south side of town up to the Crab Canyon tank. The line that runs between those two facilities is also the service line. Crab Canyon, number 1, has a little bit higher chlorine residual than it needs, which can produce some taste and smell of chlorine. It's within the regulations, but people can sometimes smell it and taste it. It also has higher iron than is suggested. Again, there's nothing against regulations. It's not a health concern, but it can produce a smell and taste that is not as pleasant. And so this project will separate those two lines to where what is coming out of the well goes directly to the tank. That'll do 2 things. That'll burn off some of the residual chlorine, but still keep the residual within the state regulations. It'll allow some of the iron to sit and settle out while it's in the tank, and then most importantly, it connects that tank. That tank is connected to our tank with the other wells and what will be coming out of the canyon, to where there'll be a better mingling of all the sources, and so there's not as direct a connection from homes from that well that is not as good a quality in terms of taste and smell as our other sources. So it just will keep the water better for the south side of town. We went out to bid. This was designed right before I got here. We sent the design out to bid, received 7 bids. RB Construction was the low bid, and so that's what we're proposing to do, is to award them the bid.
Great, thank you. These action items, these aren't public comment, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I really appreciate how you presented the bids. It was very transparent, and it makes it a lot easier for us to talk to and for the public to make sure that we're following our own processes. So thank you for sharing it like that. That mattered to me.
Agreed. That was nice to see it presented that way. It was a little interesting that the bid that we're awarding was way lower than the others, and so it made me a little nervous. I don't know if, I don't know, it was just that one, there's that one line item that was way different than other bids, and I'm not sure if that was cause to concern or if that should make us nervous, or.
I'm not sure which line item
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
you're specific to. They were quite a bit lower. I think the next lowest bid was almost 500,000. They were, should have had it memorized, but if we pull it up at about 350, so they were significantly lower. We did talk to RB afterwards and just make sure, because they have a chance to say, hey, oops, that was a mistake, which makes them back out altogether, as opposed to them being able to correct it up, and then us still award it. But nope, there's like, no, this is a good bid. We're sticking by it.
Okay,
So,
it was line 3, the 12-inch DI pipe.
yeah.
They're about 100,000 less than anyone else, but most are about 200,000 more.
Yeah, I wouldn't say an unrealistic low bid. That is, I like that.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I like it too.
We're getting more done, we're getting it done for cheaper. But like I said, we talked it through with them and said, hey, we're just wanting to make sure that we're double checking and this isn't a mistake. And nope, they're sticking by the bid, and which is great for the city. We're getting it done cheaper than we thought we were.
Okay.
That's rare.
Yeah.
Very-
I'll make a motion to award the contract for the South Mapleton Waterline Well-to-Tank project to RB Construction and Concrete.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilmember Egbert.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Great. Action item number 5, consideration of a resolution authorizing the adoption of a new county coverage area to our existing contract with Utah County. Chief Glasgow.
Thank you, Council. Kirk Bertelsen, the County Fire, Utah County Fire Marshal is here with me. He is the one who approached us about 2 months ago and just kind of feeling to see if we were interested in taking on this contract. Springville Fire Department is struggling with call volume in their own city, and they decided that they did not want to cover this area any longer. It was brought to Mapleton. If Mapleton doesn't get it, then it would be taken to Spanish Fork. That would be quite a ways for them to try to get emergency services. In the staff report, the amount that they're looking at paying us is about $53,000 a year. That is for a structure fire for the first hour. We will have paid per call revenue on top of that, and with it comes all the 911 call volume, which is also the ambulance responses, and we get to bill the patients like we do anywhere else. So we're looking at a revenue of approximately $100,000 coming in of new revenue. The call volume is about 38 calls per year is what we estimate. And I think that's something that we could handle with our current call volume. We would like to allocate some of that excess funds towards personnel, and potentially we could talk about that later. But we wouldn't be compromising our coverage level in Mapleton to cover this. We would be trying to balance both. Do you guys have any questions for me or for Kirk?
I have one regarding, you mentioned that it certainly does add some additional call volume to
Yep.
our existing call volume. I'm not, I mean, I don't see any reason not to move forward with this. I do have some caution around running out and hiring a new full-time person out of the gate. I think that's something that we need to be very judicious about over time and see when is the right time to do that.
Okay.
So I'm not, I mean, that's the caution that I would take with it. Other than that, I don't personally see any other concerns with this contract.
The 38 calls per year, is that based on just recent numbers that have been happening up the canyon with Springville?
Yeah.
And what's the history? Has there been an uptick since 10 years ago each year, or do you know the history? Have you seen the uptick or anything?
So 2019, there was 23 calls. 2020, there was 49. 2021, there was 44. 22, there was 36. And 23, there was 38. So it's a total of 190 calls over the last 5 years. That averages to 38 per. And some of those calls we are already going on already because they're agency assists, because Springville can't handle them, or they're larger incidents where we're being mutual aided into those areas already.
Do you know roughly how many of those were?
No, I don't know off the top.
You did put together a very thorough brief, by the way. Thank you
Thanks.
for doing that.
I would say probably 15 of those calls. I mean, any of the fires up Hobble Creek, we're going. Any of the extended brush fire, house fire, some of the car accidents, we're already going. They're mutual aiding us, and we're not getting paid anything to provide that coverage. That's just us helping Springville. And then when they have no ambulances available, if it's a medical, they're mutual aiding it to us as well.
So we're already going on a
Some of them,
percentage
yeah.
of those calls anyway.
Yep. And right now, we're going to Springville about 14 times a month, just helping them behind their calls.
For the equipment, any new equipment that we need to purchase to, I mean, I think we recently got a new brush truck, but,
We have on our apparatus replacement for next year, there's already some equipment that's already scheduled. So I think we're in good shape.
I think this speaks to how great the fire department is running, and kudos to you, Chief, for
Thanks. We've got a
managing
good
it.
team. Good team. Any questions for Kurt on the contract? So the way it was explained to me, we already have a contract with Utah County. We already have county lands that we get paid for. We're just expanding those lands. So it's an amendment. It's an amendment to it. And the lands on that map that are designated as Springville will now be designated as Mapleton lands.
I agree with Counselor Jones in terms of waiting to see if this has a dramatic increase that would justify an additional person. I think that makes good sense. It is a 5-year term, but I noticed there was a 90-day
Clause, yeah.
clause in it, so that doesn't concern me at all. I'd love to watch it for 6 months during a peak season and see how that goes. Is that reasonable, or will that be a concern for our existing staffing?
Ideally, I'd like to see some of this money set aside for the part-time staffing in July, and we could augment our staffing. July 1 would be the start of it.
Yeah.
As far as full-time positions, I think we could talk wage and personnel maybe at a different time.
I think the part-time is not concerning to me at all. That's not as heavy a commitment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's a
I
good
think Reed,
opportunity.
I think Reed had something.
I have a question. This is Reed. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Reed, go ahead.
There's a lot of paved road up both sides of the canyon, east and west. Most of these calls are on the paved road, or how many is off on the dirt roads, like up towards Campbell's Back?
I don't have that exact number offhand. We can research that, but it would be for everything. So it would be for wildland responses, the house fires up there, the medicals, and then the authorities having jurisdiction, like the U.S. Forest Service, Utah County Fire Department, Utah County Search and Rescue, they will come in as well, and the hope would be that we would only be there for a little while, and they're gonna take over the incidents from us. And so we're kind of that stopgap. We could stay there longer once we go in unified command with them. That happened like on the Ether Hollow fire. It started in Mapleton, quickly moved into the U.S. Forest Service. but then those authorities having jurisdiction come in and take over the fire.
Reed, is the question you're asking with the intent of like wear and tear on our equipment that maybe exceeds the expenses? I'm wondering the angle on that.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
I think we would use the stuff that we have to take off-road lightly. We're fortunate in Mapleton, we just bought a side-by-side, which Springville didn't have. And kind of one of our plans is this new utility truck that we're getting on the vehicle replacement, that we would take that and an ambulance for the medical calls. We'd leave the ambulance at the paved roads and we would go up in the pickup truck. That would be kind of the game plan, I think, to limit the wear and tear on some of those. Our 4x4 brush trucks can pretty much go anywhere, so.
I'm just concerned about some of the bigger trucks that really aren't rough road worthy.
Yeah, I don't
One
see
other
us
question.
taking too many of the,
One other question. On the fiscal budget for next year, there's an increase of $50,000 for the part-time. Is that anticipation of getting this, or is that going to be in addition regardless?
regardless.
Okay, so we're asking for $50,000 more for part-time work, and then we'll ask for more if we get this.
Yeah, and the way that I'm looking at it is that we're getting paid by the county money to do this coverage, that's extra funds. So we would be asking for some of that to be set aside for personnel.
Yeah, as long as you don't exceed it, that'd be fine.
And we estimate that our getting this contract, our guaranteed apportionment from the county is about 53,000, so that's a guarantee up front. But then we also have the paid per call, and then we have the ambulance billing. So we're estimating about $100,000 in new revenue for taking on this land total.
Yeah, we just need to monitor that, make sure it covers itself.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Discussion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the adoption of a new county coverage area as described in the packet.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Egbert and a second by Councilmember Beck.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Okay, we'll move on to, thank you, Chief Glasgow. We'll move on to action item number 6, a consideration of a resolution to approve a residential solid waste collection and disposal agreement between Mapleton City and Allied Waste. Corey.
Council members, in regards to our current garbage solid waste collection, we use Republic Service, also known as Allied Waste Services. We've been with them since approximately 1996. We've been through a number of addendums, agreements with them. We're now on addendum number 5. As you'll notice, our current agreement with them ends at the end of this month. So this proposal would be to extend that for another 5 years with the term ending of June 30th, 2029. The city's current rate for the first trash container is $6.61 per can, and the second trash container is $3.74. The proposal here by the contractor would be to increase that to $7.24 for the first container and $4.30 for the second trash container. As you'll note from this agreement, it also is set up where each year they look at the pricing escalator equal to the water, sewer, and trash collection services, CPI. With that said, the proposed rate increases will bring us to an approximately $48,000 increase to our budget. But based on our continued growth and recognizing our current cash balance, we're not here tonight to try to increase the rate on our garbage collection. So we'll continue to monitor that year to year, but we're still in a good spot that way. So with that said, staff is recommending approval of this addendum number 5. Any questions for me?
Any questions, comments, discussion? If not,
With the annual rate increase, that would move it to the same ratio as the CPI, what kind of increase could that be? Do we know like what that could look like?
It's a loaded question. It's always been over the years. I've sit and tried to monitor, but it's generally been pretty reasonable. As I've looked in, attached to your agreement, kind of shows the changes have been made over the years, but it's hard to predict. But they do try to follow the same studies that other cities use, and they feel that this is the best one to look at.
Is that also new to the agreement? Is that line right there has not been part of the agreement previously?
It's funny with that. Every time they've come with a new term or a new agreement, they've kind of changed that. So you're correct. The last time they used a different type of escalator, but this one they're using that water, sewer, and trash. Their claim is on their side, it's hard to predict them as well. And so they try to figure out what out there is the best way to kind of study what is the best rate. And they have trouble finding that one too, but they feel like this one is the one that most cities are using now. And so that's why they've proposed using that. Yeah, I'm like you, I kind of keep my fingers crossed that it's the right route, but they've always been fair on that one as far as making sure they're trying to, use the one that everyone else is using at the same time.
Okay, if there are no other comments, questions, or discussion, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the resolution approving the solid waste collection and disposal agreement between Mapleton City and Allied Waste Services, or Republic Services.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilmember Egbert. Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Your second on that was Garrett.
What's that?
The second on that was Garrett.
Did I say that?
No, Egbert.
Oh, I did.
You can take
You know, I
credit.
have Egbert written right here. Sorry about that. The
Jeez,
second was by
there's
Councilmember Theron.
That works.
Councilmember Egbert. Thank you for that. I was looking at my note from the last one. Okay, item number 7, consideration of a resolution adopting the 2024 certified tax rate as calculated by Utah County. Mr. Euler.
Thank you. As we have discussed in detail, each year the county assesses the property values, and this year in their assessment, property values actually decreased. So the process they go through to account for the revenue difference is to adjust the property tax rate. In this case, they adjusted the rate up. So our current rate is $15.38, and the new rate is going to be $15.75. And we had discussed the option of doing a truth in taxation and maintaining the rate as an option. Obviously, we don't want to maintain the rate this year, as that would decrease revenues for Mapleton City. The revenue projections for this year is $3.187 million, which is about $250 million more than this year, than 23.
250,000.
Yeah, million, yeah, right. 250,000 more than calendar year 23. So the difference there is based solely on new population, new homes, and growth. We're not actually getting more revenue or getting more property tax revenue from the rate itself. It's just coming from growth and new houses. So any questions with that?
This isn't for you necessarily, but as a procedure, why is this not a public hearing item?
It's, we're not changing the tax rate. We're not doing a truth in taxation. So we're adopting the county's certified rate. If we were doing a truth in taxation, then it would be a very drawn-out public hearing. We'd have a lot of different public disclosures and public opportunities for the public to discuss, but we're not actually doing a property tax increase. We're adopting the certified tax rate, which happens to be a little bit higher than last year.
That's why I was wondering, because the rate is technically going up, but if you're, yeah. I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
the rate's going up, but the value is going down, so there's a net zero effect. If we were doing a property tax increase, the tax bill to the resident would actually be going up based off of that, and it's not happening in this case.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to adopt the 2024 certified tax rate as calculated by Utah County.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Egbert, a second by Councilmember Jones.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce.
Thanks, Bryce.
Okay, this is where it really gets fun. Public hearing items. Item number 8. We have a consideration of an ordinance amending Mapleton City Code, Section 18.56B, eliminating the age restriction on some units in the Sunrise Ranch development. Sean Conroy.
Thank you, members of the council. You'll recall a couple meetings ago, we had a discussion item on this where two of the property owners in Sunrise Ranch that own the senior component were requesting that the age restriction for 55 and older be removed. We had a discussion on that. The council felt like they could support the removal of those primarily because initially it was not requested by the city. It was an applicant just proposing to create a senior community. And two, based on the opportunity for some additional housing types that could be made available through that. So that we are just bringing that ordinance through as directed by the council. So our recommendation would be to adopt the ordinance as proposed.
Okay, we have a, do we discuss before public comment?
Public comment first, yeah.
Public comment. Okay, we have an opportunity for the public to comment on this item. If you would like to speak, please approach the microphone and state your name, please.
Good evening, council. My name's Dade Rose. I appeared before you a couple of weeks ago when we went through this. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. I don't have anything particularly new to add, but if you have a question, I'd be happy to answer any.
I can't remember if it was you or Mr. Byrd, but is your mother okay with limiting the age restriction?
I think that was Mr. Byrd.
Okay, yeah.
I think my only concern, and I just want to voice this for the public to hear, that my only concern with it was is if there were already property owners purchasing, that had already purchased lots with the intent that it would be a 55 and older, but you assured us in our last workshop that that wasn't the case. So if that's still not the case, then I'm totally fine with this.
Yeah, we've started to sell a few more units since our meeting, but with the understanding that this was presented before the council and we were fully hoping and expecting it would happen, this change. Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals that would like to comment on this topic? Seeing as there are none, we will close public comment and open this up for discussion by the council or entertain a motion.
No issues for me.
Yeah. I'll just make a motion to approve the proposed ordinance amendments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Beck and a second by Councilmember Egbert. Reed, you're up.
You're up.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Okay, let's move on to item 9. This is public hearing item number 9. This is a consideration of an ordinance to rezone 26 acres located at approximately 800 North, 200 East from A2 TDR receiving site to a PRC 9 and to vacate a portion of Maple Hills Lane. Sean.
Thank you, members of the council. We also had this item before you back in November as a discussion item. But to refresh your memory and kind of go over some of the history, in 2018, the City Council approved the Maple Hills subdivision. It was 26 lots on approximately 38 acres. 25 of those were roughly 1 acre, and then there was one larger parcel just under just under 10 acres at the time. If you look at the map behind you, the area in red was everything that was included in that approval. And the area in yellow is the property the city owns on the bench just above that. And it's about 23 acres that the city owns. Before Maple Hills was approved, it already had the TDR receiving site overlay approved for it. This was the concept plan that was approved at that time, the 26 lots, and you can see the one large lot at this location. The property owner at the time then sold 25 acres to Patterson Construction, which is all of this minus this area shown dashed. This 11-acre parcel was sold to another entity. Patterson Construction later purchased this 2-acre parcel, partly to help with the road alignment so that it could avoid being too close to the house that's here on this corner. At the time, the property also was in the 100-year flood zone. The applicant has worked to make some improvements on the site with the culvert and the existing ditch and has worked with FEMA, and FEMA has now removed that from the 100-year flood zone, as well as the homes that were in it that are just south of here. So we think that was a positive improvement for the neighborhood. Recent geotech investigations have determined that there are some fault hazards on the eastern portion of the site. And so based on that, the applicant came to us to see if there was an opportunity to kind of reevaluate the plan to avoid those geologically sensitive areas. Staff thought that this would be a good opportunity to see if there was a way to also include a public amenity and a trail system in the plan, and so that's what we've been working towards. So the applicant's proposal is to rezone the property to PRC 9. Again, the PRC zone is essentially like an overlay zone. It doesn't allow more density, it just allows more flexibility so that you can mix and match your lot sizes. They're proposing to construct a trailhead parking area and a trail accessing the bench, accessing the city property. That would be free of cost to the city. And the applicants have increased their acreage by 2 acres and have reduced the total of number of lots that they're proposing. So we think that those are all positives: less density, more acreage, and a public trail amenity. The lot sizes range from roughly half an acre to over 6 acres in size, so there is a mix of lot sizes in the proposal as well. So this is the proposed layout. The area that you can see highlighted in yellow here is the area the geotechs identified as potentially fault hazard areas, and so they have moved the development, most of the lots to the west to avoid those areas. So the area that's shown here will remain as part of these lots, but it'll essentially be open space because it will not be available for habitable structures. You can see the proposed trail head here and the proposed trail that would work its way up on top of the bench. This trail will be, they will have to survey it to ensure obviously that we're building it on city property. As you know, with our extensive outreach we've done over the last few years with the general plan, with the trails master plan, with the rebranding, something that continues to come to the forefront is the desire for trails and access to the city's open space. The city recently completed the Trails Master Plan, and this site was identified as a potential location for a trailhead. Really our only good option north of the canyon. And so based on that feedback is why we've been working with the applicant on this. This is just an exhibit from the Trails Master Plan showing the potential trailhead on the project site. Can you hit next on that, Camille? Sorry, this isn't clicking very well. This is just an aerial vision of the trail working its way up onto the city property and then to the existing trail that runs south to Maple Canyon. Just a view of the property we own on the bench. And these are the potential views you could get from up above on that property. Really a spectacular opportunity in staff's opinion. And then this is the existing trail running south. As far as our general plan, as far as guidance that the general plan gives us, the property is designated as rural residential. The rural residential designation is identified primarily on the eastern and towards the south portion of the city. It encourages 2-acre lots or 1-acre lots with the use of TDRs, and does indicate that smaller lots may be proposed as part of a conservation subdivision, provided the overall densities are not increasing. Large vacant undeveloped properties are encouraged to have this type of cluster or conservation type approach. So we feel like the plan really is consistent with what the general plan is indicating. Conservation subdivisions are intended to protect sensitive lands, provide open space, provide amenities, which again is what's being proposed. The original project, the average lot size was 1.4 acres. With the revision, it's 1.6. The average lot size of the vicinity is also 1.6, so it's really in line with the averages that you see in the vicinity. This is the general plan map. The green shows the rural density, the rural residential, and the hash marks are areas that are encouraged to consider that conservation type approach. General plan also encourages implementing the TDR program. Of course, this project's been designated as a receiving site. The applicant has already surrendered the TDRs necessary for the project. And the general plan, again, encourages us to incorporate trail planning in our master planning. We certainly understand that there's concerns. The primary concern we're hearing is over lot sizes. If the applicant was proposing strictly half-acre lots, you know, the density would be more like 45 to 50 on this site. And staff certainly would concur that that would be a concern based on the general plan guidance. But given that it's you know, the PRC proposal, we think it's in line with the general plan and with the vision of the city. This was a housing survey we did as part of the general plan update. You can see kind of the sweet spot for what the community wanted was that half-acre to 1-acre range. Of course, there's interest in larger lots as well, which is why we think this is a good option. It provides both some of the smaller lots as well as the larger. And based on that information, staff is recommending approval of the proposed ordinance.
Great, thank you, Sean. Okay, we'll now open up tonight's meeting for public comment. If you would like to speak on this topic, please approach the microphone. When you approach the microphone, please state your name. It appears that there might be several people that want to speak on this topic, so we will ask that you keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less. As you approach that 3 minutes, I will, as appropriately and politely as I possibly can, interject just to remind you of the time, okay?
And Councilmember Jones, you may want to have the applicant speak first and then have
You are
the public
absolutely
comment
right.
if
Sorry,
they
guys.
have anything else they want to add.
Yep, sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit.
Thank you, council members. My name's Scott Dunn, and I represent Patterson Construction. So in November, previously, you met Ross Welch from our organization. And I just wanted to comment on the project. I've been involved with it along with Ross. And this has been an interesting development challenge as we've got into the project. We've already recorded 2 phases and built a substantial amount of the improvements for the project before we discovered how substantial this geologic feature was. And so with working with the staff, we appreciate the staff. We wanted to come at this with a creative solution to work within ordinances that already exist in Mapleton. We didn't want to try to do something that's brand new, totally different. I normally don't like being in public meetings where we're requesting zone changes. I know that it's frowned upon. And ultimately, I feel like that's how we've approached this challenge, is we have looked at creative design solutions to come at this, not trying to recreate what we thought we had when we purchased the property, but to do the best we can to develop with what usable property is there. And ultimately, we've had to invest in purchasing more land. We'll invest in creating more public amenities, and we are losing some density. And we feel like ultimately this is a good plan. It fits within ordinances that exist in Mapleton. There's projects that have this zone, And we've looked at 100 different plans and feel like this is a really good option. And we appreciate your guys' time, and we appreciate staff's time.
Great, thank you. Okay, I could just feel the eagerness from the audience. That's why I jumped the gun, sorry.
Yeah, and I might be more than 3 minutes.
That's okay. I'm just going to remind you of your
We
3-minute
have to-
time, okay?
but we have to live with the decisions that are being made tonight, so it might be a little bit more than 3
Okay,
minutes.
I'll still remind you at around 3 minutes.
My name's Craig Murdoch. I live at 1893 East 400 North. The first question I have for the council is, why do we have zoning ordinances to begin with? Anybody like to answer that question?
Typically, we'll take the questions and then the council will answer them after everybody's
Yeah,
gone
okay.
through it.
Because if we have zoning ordinances, why don't we ever adhere to them? Why do we always turn around when there's all of a sudden a problem and try to come up with a resolvement to help these developers to take a development here in an A2 that was cited as a transfer for TDRs, and we said in a meeting in 2018, and with the knowledge that there's only one road in and one road out, Corey brought it to the attention to everybody that you could only have a maximum of 30 home sites. And at that time, with the adjacent property owners and the old boys home and 11 acres and Chrysler property, that came up to 7 home sites, existing home sites or potential. So out of the 30, when I went to school, 7 out of 30 made 23, not 26 to begin with. Now they've turned around and found out that there's problems with the property, and they've come to the city council and the residents to say, solve our problem. This is cutting into our bottom line, and I've asked to take it and basically taken 11 or 12 or 13 lots and put them underneath a half acre, and yet they've got property up there that they've taken and gonna be open spaces to 5 acre that can be a barn put on them, but no housing onto that. But I've got 2 questions now, and if you've got a poker, see under that A1, Sean, you got a poker to go see plot A1, you'll see a lot down there at the end, down there, right there. That's Patterson's property too. How come that's not showing up as building sites?
It is, it's already platted, it's included in the total
Okay,
number of
but
lots.
it's that one lot, all that right there?
It is.
Or is that gonna be 2 lots?
No, that's one.
That's gonna be 1. The other question I just want to get off the table right quick is I've kind of heard in order to offset the destruction of Ashman's homes, that the Patterson's development is going to basically, to cover the cost of removing those trees, add additional property to the Ashman's property. Is this true?
I'm not sure that that discussion is
Well, it
further.
is.
Perhaps that discussion can
It-
happen,
it-
perhaps
it-
that can go on,
It
that
is
exchange.
relevant because if they do add property to, add to Ashman's property, that takes it to 4 acres, which gives them the right to build another home on that 2 acres, which adds another housing site coming down 2000 East. So it is relevant to what's going on with this
Well, there's an
development.
entire process that would have to go through the city
Okay.
process on that. So I would invite you to talk with the representative from Patterson Homes after the meeting or after your
Well,
comments.
I
That would
think
be-
that's something that should be brought up to the group. That affects a home site on that when there can only be a maximum
Sean, can you
of
show
30
where
homes.
he's talking about?
Yeah, so this is Ashman's.
Oh, I
If they picked up, they'd have an additional one, but given that this is 23 and you've got 3 here, and
You've got 4, you've got
so you could
also
still,
Edmund.
you could
But
still have, you
You've
could still
got
have
Paul
one additional
Edmonds,
within the 30.
you've got Paul Edmonds' property that sits on the corner there.
Right, the corners don't count towards the 30 because they have access on the other street.
It sure counts to mine because it's got the driveways on to 2000 East, the home faces 2000 East, and the address is 2000 East.
In the absence of an application, this is pure speculation. I'd recommend moving on.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
as
and
far as I'm
we're
concerned-
beyond 3 minutes, Mr. Murdoch.
Okay. Well, the other thing I just wanted to bring up, number 9, is I'm in a way also adamantly opposed to that parking lot and that trail system. Right now, up in that neck of the woods, we have an overabundance of people ever since the pandemic hit and all of a sudden they found out about that canyon. That has been an ongoing, it's just saturated with people. If you take that parking lot and put it into that residential area, right now we're gonna fight the additional 26 or some odd housing coming out and going down Fort North. That means we also have to fight with the people going up there and trying to park. And in the summertime, when they can't get up the canyon, in the Nemelka subdivision, they're parking down all through them streets, and they're gonna do all that down through that area too. Now, I don't mind the trailhead and that, but if you own a parking lot, why don't you take it up and put it on the city's property that Dave Patterson's developed, dedicated to you all up into that area and that. So I think a trailhead is fine, but I don't see any reason for a parking lot and that additional traffic coming up and down that street. The other consideration is in the years that I've lived there, built the home in '91, I've been evacuated 2 times for a fire. The last one that was up on this mountain, we had a hell of a time getting out of there because of all the looky-lookers on 400 North. We couldn't get out of there. How are you gonna get all them people out of there too? So I think the thing is, it was zoned A2, and with the TDRs, that puts it as acre building lots, and I think we ought to hold to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murdock. Is there I suspect there's several of you that want to speak, so you're welcome to come up. I will remind you of your 3 minutes. Please state your name as you approach the microphone.
Evening, Council. My name's Spencer Anderson. I live in the top right property by the parking lot up to Mapleton Canyon, and I've seen the traffic that brings in from other locations trying to enjoy our beauty, and the same thing's going to happen with that trailhead. Just like everybody comes to our great fireworks show, that's not just going to serve Mapleton, but that's going to bring people from miles around. So you can't even predict what kind of traffic we found. All sorts of unmentionables in our front yard because of that. So I consider this a broken promise, given we moved here 10 years ago thinking that these were required to be 2 acres. Can't we stop at 1 acre lots? If it's gonna go down to a half, where does it end? Couldn't it go to a 1/4 and an 1/8, and so on with the remaining TDRs? I understand that the average on the density may have gone up to 1.6, but then you end up having gigantic houses with wealthy people moving in, just like we see with the Clegg Canyon development, where you're getting large houses because of density. Mike Nemelka was gracious enough to give away some of the plots and stay within the density limits, but now you've got near 400 large homes shrinking the available space, so they're going to the edge of the property. So the larger properties that change the average lot size are towards the back of the mountain, so you can't even really tell. So you don't get the spacious feel. You're getting now a very crammed feel. So I understand in statistics, average is very different than median because of the outliers. So you can change the density, the definition of it, with larger lot sizes, but having half-acre lots really becomes a different feel, and that's not what people were moving here for. Why not change those into vertical lots? Either an acre, you could put 3 or 4. I'm not sure, but unfortunately, several of our neighborhood is gone because of ward activities. I talked to a few of them. I know some of them emailed you. The Leggies, the Martins emailed against this. The Grens are out of town, but expressed their dismay about this and thought it was supposed to be an agreed 1 acre lots. The Pews that live on 1600 East, I'll close with their statement. We strongly oppose the approval of the current development plans as the proposed half-acre lots are out of place in this neighborhood. If the lots were 1 acre, they would be more in line with the majority of the homes in the area. We find it difficult to understand why there would be a desire to deviate from the established norm when the vast majority of residents chose to live here because of the larger property size. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great on the time. Your 3 minutes is right up. Thank you.
Hi, y'all. My name is Don Garlitz, resident. I live on 910 North and 1600 East here in Mapleton. I just wanted to express my concern about the approval here. My main concern is, as some of the neighbors have already said, the half-acre lots, in my opinion, just aren't in place in this part of Mapleton. I mean, we moved here about 10 years ago. Similar message as what you've heard earlier, with the expectation that this was kind of a semi-rural kind of a place to live, and peace and quiet and less people and less traffic and so on. So I just think with half-acre lots coming into this part of town is out of place. I have concern about the additional precedent here as well. I mean, with this being potentially changed into a PRC, I've concern about other properties that surround where I live, directly adjacent to my home, that are not developed yet. And if you take some of that, there's an area right to the south of my home that's a little over 12 acres. If you take this same logic, the individual that owns that property today could come in here and say, hey, we've got a couple of other PRCs that are adjacent or close by that were approved. That precedent is going to be very hard for this council to resist. If you take that 12-acre area that's just south of me, and hypothetically, if that person decided to make a 5-acre lot, we'd end up with 11.6-acre lots, and that's not what we moved here to enjoy. So I'm opposed, and hope that you'll consider that when you make your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Good evening, Council. My name is Michelle Anderson. I'm Spencer's wife, living on the 2301 East 400 North property. We have 2.5 acres. My understanding from all the surveys that have been done over the years of the community is that their number one priority and enjoyment of this community is the rural feel, and that supersedes trail systems in interest. People come here. We've moved here. You've heard from several neighbors. There are many others that couldn't be here for the express purpose of having a more rural type lifestyle, enjoying that. You allowed Clay Canyon development to come in, and we are now seeing exactly what that feels like in this larger acre properties. Excuse me, let me clarify. We're seeing with large homes on smaller lots and what that feels like, regardless of the fact that they're removing 2 lots and overall density is going down, like Spencer said. It feels more dense. When you go into the Clay Canyon development, it feels very close. These huge homes, which are beautiful, but on very small lots, and it just does not fit the feel of the neighborhood whatsoever. We also have existing trails. As my understanding is, in 2018, when this was initially approved, there was already a trail that was agreed upon at that time. So this whole idea that we're getting some sweet deal by giving up land or allowing these small lots because we get a trail now, I think is a fallacious argument. Also, I'd like to say that to ask you guys to please respect the priorities and interests of the community that lives there. We want to maintain this rural look and feel. There was a reason, like Mr. Murdoch said, that there's a zoning process and why it was zoned certain ways. And if you don't hold the line here, I just don't know where you're gonna hold it. It doesn't make any sense to me. This is whose interest is being served by going to this type of density. It is not the residents throughout this whole entire area. I've talked to at least 20 people. None of us are in favor of this. I wanted to ask the emails. I know people have emailed. Are those going to be read as part of the public record?
We have read them as part of our packets, but your 3 minutes is up, so if you could wrap up your final thoughts, that would be great.
Okay, so those have been
That's all part of our
distributed?
packets.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So whose interests are you serving? Is it the developer that is going to just not get as much money? You know, the fault line, it's kind of silly to me to say that a fault line is all of a sudden a surprise to everybody. The fault line has been there for thousands of years. It's 2004, the survey, et cetera. So the builder absolutely knows. They come in with that understanding. It's disclosed to them. And to go back on it now and try to get us to eat those costs, I think is not right. So I ask you to please hold the line on this zoning, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other comments?
Thanks for the opportunity for us to express our opinions. I'm Thomas Ewell, and I live at 2237 East, adjacent to the Andersons and due south of Plat A2. And I just want to express my concern as well with lots smaller than 1 acre and what that does to the overall sort of feeling of the areas in which we live every day. And so I hope you'll take that into consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Ewell. Lori or Mark, you have signed up. Is this a topic you would like to comment on?
Good evening, Council. I'm Lori Sheranian. So I'm just addressing mostly the trail system today. I use the trails that Mapleton has and Springville trails constantly, and I love them. I do think we have a great choice, especially when Maple Canyon's open. It seems like we have a lot. So between ourselves and the Reeds so we're on the north end of the property, and the Reeds on the south, and then we have the people on the west of us. We get constant calls, starting usually around March, all the way through November and beyond, of trespassing. And it's so constant that I feel like the trail, instead of them just going up that little ways and to the abandoned house on the hill which will eventually be built, they now come up. They don't care about the no trespassing signs. They don't care even a little bit. We have them posted every 10 feet. Big signs. There's no way you could not see them. The general public does not care. So they step over it. They walk in there. They interrupt sleep. We call the police constantly, which makes us feel bad, but they tell us not to go ourselves. The parking at the end, I don't know if you have a pointer, Sean, where you can show. So that is the entrance to my son's property. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah.
Right there? Okay, so he used to have, and we're actually still seeing if there's any access. The regular driveway that we have used for the last 30 years that goes in and out, I'm not sure if it was on city's property now, what it's been switched over to, but it was a nice, lovely driveway in to the home. If it accesses there, it's a very long drive up and around to get to the proper entrance to the house. And that is where the proposed parking lot is. So the parking lot is the backyard to these other properties, so they can't see what's going on there. So to the entrance to our son, who could not be here today, he was out of town, to his property will be 8 parking spots right before his lovely gate or entrance, or however he wants his property. So that's what will be the entrance to his home. You can go up there any weekend night and see what's left there after people who are not there illegally, if they're even parked there. A lot of things happen at the end of that parking lot. A lot of paraphernalia, sexual, drugs, beer cans. There's a lot that is dumped there, and that's where people go to be private, where they can't be seen. The trailhead worries us because as it goes up the hill, now they're out of sight. They're also hard to reach by police officers who can fairly easily go up there now and stop what's going on. But when they're clear up the mountain, no longer are they seen, and they can go over fences up on our upper property as well as other people's. So it is a concern. The trail is a concern to us. And we don't think it's that necessary. I was thinking that, possibly it could come in on the city's property, even if it were up a little bit further in and out, and you would still have the beautiful view that Sean talked about, and it is a beautiful view. You'd still have the beautiful view without crossing behind these properties and leaving so much more trail for them to trespass into and not be seen. So that's just my thought is on the trail system, is it's not needed, and it will bring a lot of traffic to the already very busy street that I don't think is necessary. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Mark?
Good evening. Mark Sheranian. We own the property north of my son's property, and we're here representing my son Brandon Sheranian, who owns the northeast section. The cul-de-sac there in the very bottom where the trailhead would be the now proposed entrance to his property. I have three concerns. I concur with everybody's feeling here on the lot size. Back when Smoot was first trying to develop this, we were discussing all the options. We had discussions with Sean, and Sean, you told me directly at that time that it was a one or the other. When you use the TDRs as a receiving site, you got to reduce, the acreage from the A2 down to a 1 acre. But there were no other ordinances. You couldn't double down. You couldn't use a clustering. You couldn't use the PRC or anything else. We just keep moving the bar, and it's very destructive to the rural feeling that we've all just invested our lifetimes here for. This is what we're here for. And we think the long term is going to be so detrimental to Mapleton City, it's not worth it. The developers are here to make money, I get that, and they're going to get all the density they can. And the city's going to be making money off the taxes and everything else. And so there's motivation there, but we need you to look out for us as residents. That's my concern on the zoning. I don't think it should ever go below 1 acre. I didn't agree with that, but that should be the minimum. My biggest concern that my wife expressed is this trailhead. It's just absolutely crazy to have a trailhead at the end of this cul-de-sac with these homes and one way in, one way out, limited parking. There's never going to be enough parking. They're going to be up and down the roads. This is the entrance to a nice piece of property. It's going to be a beautiful property someday. No one here, no one as a resident, no one as a neighbor will want that as their entrance, to have a trailhead. At the very least, very least, you could have, if you needed to come into the city's property, you'd have access from Maple Canyon. You've got a parking area there. They could do a loop in and never have to bother or have the traffic down here. That would be the least. I think it's just immoral to think about putting a parking lot at the entrance to those properties. The other big concern that I have, George Murdoch built that house, the abandoned house that's my son's property, back in the 70s. So it's been there about 50 years plus. I had a conversation, I'm acquainted with George. I don't know where he is. I've been trying to get a hold of him today. But we had a conversation some 20 odd years ago where I asked him, prior to me acquiring that property, which has been sold to my son, and he indicated that he had an easement coming in along the prescribed easement, or an actual easement that accessed that property. That's where all the improvements come in. That's where the roads are. That's where the property's been utilized for 50 years plus, and before the house was built. So we're asking the council tonight to, at the very least, if you don't just turn down this proposal, which would be preferred, at the very least to table it, to allow us time to research far enough back to find out if there is an easement, what our options are there, because this has gone through so many iterations. And we were good with the last iteration, which it still brought the entrance to the property, not along the same path that it traditionally has followed, but it brought it in from another cul-de-sac or an offering. I don't have that map, but it was much more acceptable because it came into the top of the property. This creates all kinds of problems, and to
Mark,
have a
can I ask you,
trailhead.
you're talking about an easement. This is an easement for access to the higher property?
So-
Is that
What
you're
he's,
talking
what
about?
he's referring to is that there's an old road that comes up here.
Oh, I see.
And then comes in there. That's what he's
So,
referring to.
so the 8 acres parcel that's on the northeast corner of the development, the bottom where the cul-de-sac and the trailhead is, that's the bottom of the property. And then it kind of extends all the way up to where the trailhead intersects there. But the traditional road came in right next to the Reed's property and just came along, kind of along the power lines, below the power lines up there, and that's where it came in. And my understanding from George Murdoch at the time I had this discussion, and we may have to do some research, we may have to go back, it may not exist, it may exist, but I'm asking for some time that we can look at that. This is not acceptable. I mean, this just will not fly with what we have had planned for a long, long time. We've been here 30 years now, and this property we've owned for 20, and it's just not acceptable. We just need to have some time to figure out another plan. I think the trail could be nice, but it shouldn't be part of this subdivision.
So it
It's
sounds
just
like
too-
your biggest concern is the trailhead.
It is.
The parking lot, because it
Yes.
abuts your son's property, which might impact his
It's gonna
either
impact this- it's gonna impact
sellability or his quiet enjoyment of his own property.
Well,
Is that,
it's less the sellability, because we all plan to die here. I mean, but we're being, we're having questions about that because of these kinds of things. This is not what we bought into, and everybody's expressed that. It's very, very discouraging. It's very disheartening. It just doesn't seem moral to do this to the entrance of somebody's property when they've had access for 50 years through another access point. And the last proposal, Sean, they all kind of took that into consideration. They brought it up through another point. But the trail is my number one concern. I agree 100% that the lot shouldn't be under 1 acre. But if there's a legal way to do that, none of these homeowners, future, present, whatever, are going to want a trailhead in here. And it's going to create traffic, problems for the police, trespassing, all kinds of problems. And it will never be just a few people parked there. There's going to be a lot of people going in and out of there that aren't residents. I just don't believe anybody in our community is going to benefit from that. And I'm asking respectively that you at least table this until we can get further input, do a little more research, and have time to resolve this or come up with a better plan at the very least. Thank you.
great, thank you for your comments, Mark. Any other comments from the public? Please state your name.
Rob Reed. I agree with everything that's been said. One of the main things was the precedence that you're setting here. Those lots are too small. I don't know where you're coming up with the 6-acre lots. There's nothing up there. My house is 1 acre, and you could fit 2 or 3 of those in my yard. So the ones that are undevelopable might be that size, but there's more density. There is. There might be fewer people in that much acreage, but there is much more density right there where those lots are. And it does set precedence for what's going to be allowed in Mapleton. And that area, it's just wrong. That's not the place for it. I mean, the trailhead is another problem. We call the cops every night, and that's the people we can kick out. When there's a trailhead there, that's a free pass, I agree with everything they've said. It's just, it blows my mind it would even be considered. I'm surprised it's got to this point. That should have been laughed out of his office right off the bat.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Bringhurst, I think he's left. We have 2 others, okay, great.
Dave Bringhurst, I live at 565 North,
David.
1600 East. We also have the traffic coming to the canyon regularly. I've hiked this area. It's beautiful. I love it. It is weird to argue for a feeling. You know, how do I give data? How do I give research information for a feeling? But I moved to Mapleton for a feeling. And that feeling gets changed a little bit with this change. I appreciate the effort that Patterson has gone into to try and figure out a solution. I quite admire what you've done to try and figure that out. But I don't want those half-acre lots. I want the feeling that we've created. I wonder if this fits our strategic plan that we've had for this city. Because it doesn't feel like it to me. It's a feeling. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I admire the effort and the thoughtfulness. I think the proposal of the trailhead and that discussion is a little bit disingenuous for this discussion. That should have been done in the first place, and it still exists. There is access, other access that should be considered. I appreciate what my neighbors have shared, and I agree with them. I really would prefer that Patterson finds a way to make at least 1 acre lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bringhurst. Mr. Rich.
So, don't start my 3 minutes yet, because I have to say something about Lori. I haven't seen her in 2.5 years. Swear on my life, I moved here from Chicago. I went up the mountain, I came right down into her property. I saw no trespassing signs, didn't care. Got trapped in her yard. Trapped in her yard. She started yelling, "Hey, Sawyer, is that you?" I'm like, oh, what do I do? Like, there's a huge fence. She came. I was like, oh, I'm your neighbor. I'm your neighbor. Nice as possible. So nice to me. I trespassed. I didn't care. It was like, they own like 100 acres. I climbed up the mountain. I came down. I'm like, I'm getting down. I'm not going back up the mountain. I've been in their abandoned house. I've set up trail cams on their property. Don't handcuff me. I'm just.
Cameron,
I don't.
Don't trespass, and your time has started.
Okay. I'm just just people don't care. I don't care. Like, now that I know them, I mean, I feel bad. So my question though is, I don't know why we have PRC. Like, nobody has come up and said they like it. These guys have the most at stake here. They live by it. So, I mean, I would think that, you know, if it was a good idea, everyone that had to live by it would go for it. I've heard arguments that, you know, it's less than what they proposed last time. I don't think that should matter. I think it should be judged on face value. Even in the legislation last few months ago, someone proposed 1/8 acres lots. So if they come and propose 1/4 acre lots, is that going to be good because it's less than last time? I don't think we should look at previous to judge the current. So to me, even though it's a little bit less dense, I don't think that matters. But my main kind of objection on this is, I'll ask Sean this, is why can't TDRs be used in platted subdivisions? Just in your simplest. You don't even have to answer. I can answer it if you. It's to protect the platted subdivision. Now, these guys all have platted subdivisions that back up to this. So are we protecting platted subdivisions? Because in my scenario, you know, I proposed something, it was voted down, said, you know, we want to protect platted subdivisions. But for me, it's disingenuous to say you want to protect platted subdivisions, then turn around, and when you have 3.5 acres, turn around and approve half-acre lots next to 3.5 acre lots. That's 7 times the density. So I believe it should be feathered, you know, it should be 2 acres, 1.5 acre, 1 acre, half acre, you know, and so on. But having 3.5 acres with a half acre lot next to it is just, to me, it's egregious. I don't think it's fair. So, I mean, if you were gonna approve it, I think you should let the residents that are next to it participate in it. This rule from 30 years ago I think it should be thrown out if you're gonna allow 7 times the density. But I don't think you should do that either. But all I ask is that things are fair. I don't live by this, so, you know, it's not, I don't have as much at stake, but all I care about is fairness. And, you know, to allow that much density next to somebody, I don't think is fair. That's all I have.
Thank you, Cameron.
Yep.
My name's Jordan Hall. Just echo what has already been said. We moved into this area because we like the larger lots, and we've been through a lot of city council meetings with people trying to decrease the lot size. And whereas a half acre may sound like a lot if you live like in Harvest Park or like a high, you know, density apartment thing or something, when you have like the Roundy property, the Clay Canyon thing, when it's a half acre, but those houses are almost a half acre, so you have a little bit of yard around it. It just feels packed in there. So we like the larger lots. I kind of like the trails, and I use the trails. I don't know about the parking lot, but we spent all this years and effort and time in preserving the bench, and there's like almost nowhere to get onto it. There might be some little, if you turn by somebody's house, you can kind of sneak up and get on the fire break road. So I like the idea of the trails, but I don't like the idea of reducing the lot size. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Okay, seeing as there are no more comments to be made, or no more public that wants to make a comment, we will now close public comment and open up for discussion, questions by the council.
Sean, I'm wondering what we can call it, because it's not quite A2 zoning because of the TDRs that have been applied, right? Do we have a term for that? When it is A2, but then
That's the TDR receiving site.
just a TDR receiving site, because, you know, obviously we've heard often tonight that it's A2 zoning, but it doesn't feel like it's A2 zoning with the TDRs stepping them down to 1 acre.
Right.
I'm just curious if there's a term for that.
Called A2 with
TDR.
TDR.
Mm-hmm.
And then also with a lot of discussion about the trail easement, I didn't see in our packet, but you're saying the back side of just kind of on the east side?
Where it is?
Or in the 2018 original plan?
Oh, the 2018, they showed one of the plans, not the plan that actually is stamped approved. There was an easement shown roughly in this location, so it's not on property that Patterson owns, and it basically would have just led to the face of a sand cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And the trail planners will tell you you can't build a trail up the sand because it just won't hold.
Okay.
That's why when we had the trail expert out, this alignment goes through a ravine, and then when you're coming up the hillside, it tracks its way through areas that have vegetation so that it can stabilize the slope, so once you build it, it's maintainable.
Would that restriction that you mentioned on the first example, would that be the case? There have been a few comments made about accessing it through the city property. Could you comment on that, Sean? Because I would imagine there could be some additional limitations potentially based on soil or slope or
I'm trying to
any number of things.
Get to a exhibit that, so you can see the city property is here.
That's quite a, can I say steep, quite an elevation from where this actual plat sits.
Right. Now there's that existing trail that I showed you in the picture that comes off of Maple Canyon. So if you walk that, you could then get into this area.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask as well. That's legitimate access, right? Public can access that. It's not private property crossing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not defined. You kind of have to walk across the creek when the water's flowing.
Yeah.
There's not a parking area. I mean, you can park at the trailhead and walk up the road a little bit and find your way to it and get through there.
It's not developed, but it's also not crossing private property or.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And it doesn't, if there, it's on that side with the ravine, improving it to an actual trailhead sounds quite prohibitive because of the ravine and
Yeah, I
so
mean,
forth.
I think ideally, I mean, the Trails Master Plan showed numerous trails in this area, not just, right? And so just having one access, in our mind, isn't the best option. To have multiple accesses, if possible, would be ideal for us. But
It's a good point to keep in mind in light of the concerns about that, the one access point.
Yeah,
It's
and-
just an opportunity to have one of the many access points completed and done sooner than later.
And that the trespassing issue is a challenge. You know, it really is tough to say. I mean, typically, I think right now, the reason people are going there and trespassing is because no one's there. It's an empty field that you can get back to and hide. Once it's developed and there's homes and you've got a formal trail that people are using, that tends to keep people more in line, but it certainly doesn't guarantee that people won't trespass, right? That's going to exist anytime we propose a trail anywhere.
Yeah, and the same negative effects come with any trail access, trailhead. And I think the fact that Mapleton has no trail access currently is
I think it compounds it where there is access.
very problematic and kind of a cause to the problem. But not saying that if we are all of a sudden open up 5 trailheads that it will completely eliminate the issue. There's going to be issues at every trailhead and an irritant to all landowners around it. So. But it's tricky.
Well, and people like to have recreational activities, not only on trails. I live across the street from the Harvest Park, and there have been quite a number of recreational debris left in the treehouse. So it's a real problem, I understand that, but not limited to trails.
And it doesn't imply that you would eliminate all parks.
Right.
That's correct, yeah, yep. That's right.
I appreciate all the efforts from Patterson, also appreciate staff's efforts. I know this has been a tricky issue, and there's been a lot of effort made to make it right. I was unaware of all the current issues with the trail, and of course, that doesn't mean we deal with trails, but it seems that the trailhead in this location is not desired, and it's only half a mile away from the Maple Canyon trailhead. So I don't know that this is a reason to accept the proposal to put the trailhead there. I know that there's no future opportunity for a trailhead north of Maple Canyon, but again, I'm not convinced that there's a lot of residents in North Mapleton that want this trailhead. I don't know, some that lives in North Mapleton, I don't know, Theron, if you have a thought there.
I have a lot of thoughts. I do have a quick question though, Sean, about that abandoned house and that easement. What is the current status of that? Is that home's obviously abandoned, but if somebody were to want to reoccupy it, is there an easement or a road that would be provided for that?
I'm not aware of any recorded easement. If there was some argument that there's a prescriptive right to be there, they would have to have a judge rule on that. That's not something that the city would be involved in. That's would be between Patterson and the adjacent property.
So there's not currently a Jeep trail to get up there right now. It's been completely grown.
Well, you can kind of see it right here. It's still there, but it runs through three or four different property owners to get to it.
You can't currently drive on it.
Yeah, it is the road's there.
But it's now through several other people's property. Okay.
Yeah, and the history of it, the way I understood it, is this piece originally was all part of one parcel, and it was divided off without going through any city subdivision process. So this piece right now is not considered a legal parcel, which is why we've always told the Patterson development, you've got to provide a stub road so that then they can get the frontage that they need to become a legal parcel. So they kind of need each other in one way or the other on this.
Well, I'll go through my list of thoughts. I'm not anti-PRC. I've actually voted in favor of PRCs. I think there's some that are in the city historically that are a good fit and they're efficient, and they make good use of clustering and leaving open space. However, I'm always leery. I'm always leery of zone changes. This one worries me because it puts more density, smaller lots right on the road, right in the view of the neighbors. It puts all the open space up against the mountain. So to me, it's the advantages of a PRC are not really there. The advantages of a PRC to me are the whole community can enjoy open space and put the houses in places that are the smaller lots in places where it's more inconspicuous, where this one just doesn't feel like it meets to me, the criteria of a PRC.
So you'd rather have them up on the ledge, the higher area of this property?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you took away the
everybody can
fault
see 'em?
zone, like, obviously, there's other places to spread out the smaller lots in a PRC zone, but we've got the fault zone here, and we've got geotech issues that make it problematic. So I'm not saying there's an easy answer to it. I'm just saying, all things considered, this is not one that I'm comfortable with as far as just calling it a PRC. Another point I wanted to make was that you won't find another person that's fought harder for trail access. I've been a proponent of trail access and pushed for it for at least 10 years now, in many ways. So this is very, to me, the getting a trail access here is very appealing to me, because we as a council our job is not just to protect certain residents in a neighborhood. Our job is to provide an atmosphere citywide for all of our residents in the city. And that's why I'm a big proponent for fighting for trail access, because Mapleton is starved with trail access. And so getting a trail access is very, very, to me, a very big thing when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, representing all all of the people in the city that elected us. So I have to consider that. That's a big deal to me. However, it's not a rubber stamp for me. Like, just because we're getting proposed a really good trail access here doesn't make this a really good, smart move. There's so many advantages to this design. I mean, I think I very much appreciate the creative nature of this to try and provide for safe housing, not on the fault. I think we have a responsibility as city leaders to make sure that we don't have building homes on dangerous areas. So I do appreciate that. This plan does adhere to the general plan. The general plan is very a big proponent of creative ways of creating open space. But that goes back to my original challenge, in that this design, putting smaller lots all together right there on the road, just kind of feels like it's building a fence of homes and then hiding the open space behind it. If there was neighborhoods up around it, then it would be a different story. But to me, it's a big challenge for me, because while we've fought for years and decades, and our forefathers have fought for preserving the benches, this just still doesn't fit right in the feel, as has been mentioned. So right now, I'm not in favor. That's my thoughts.
I appreciate the staff report and all the mentions of the general plan, because I do see how this development adheres to the policies and goals of the general plan. But I also see some ways in which it doesn't, and I see how the original plan adheres to the general plan as well. I'm also not really supportive, and it's actually because of the code here, 18.12.010, where one of the considerations will have adverse effects on adjacent landowners, and I think the point has been made tonight that it would have adverse effects. Also, it mentions, is it a desired development? And it's pretty clear that it's not a desired development among the adjacent landowners. And even some of those that bought into this development that have mentioned that they preferred the 1 acre zoning as well. So I'm not very supportive of this either.
So are you saying the trails have an adverse effect, or the entire project has an adverse effect on neighboring properties?
The trails.
The trail.
The trailhead.
Trail access,
Okay.
yeah.
And with Maple Canyon Trailhead only half a mile away, I don't see this location as a game changer. I know that, there's question of whether we could have other, trailheads north of Maple Canyon, and there's not many opportunities. I'm just not sure that this.
I kind of agree with that, but it's tricky. I'm like, this is low-hanging fruit, and all the property north of this, you can ask the stream, there's not any access. I mean, in our general trails plan, there's plans for trails all the way around into Hobble Creek and access that way, but I agree with you that Maple Canyon is just right around the corner, and we have access there, but this is kind of a central spot between Maple Canyon and Hobble Creek, so that's my draw. It's not far away from Maple Canyon, but it's also a really prime spot for public access.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not enough. It's not enough draw, I don't think, for me.
And you've been a real proponent of the general plan as is, so I'm personally surprised to hear of all of us, I think you've been a real proponent of the general plan and sticking with the general plan. I feel like it's very consistent with the general plan. I don't think it's an ideal scenario for anybody. I really don't. I think everybody would say, come in, right? There's a fault line, let's do it. Or don't do it, or whatever the case. So I'm just surprised that, I'm just surprised to hear some of those comments.
I'm absolutely 100% supportive of the general plan. I helped rewrite the whole thing. I mean, it's very, very much a basis that I base every judgment I make on it. But that doesn't say, the general plan doesn't say just because it fits, that just because it is okay in the general plan and it fits the general plan doesn't mean it has to be put in place, because there's other factors, and these other factors, the negative factor of putting all the half acre lots together on that road, to me, that's what sways it.
On a dead-end road that is traveled only by local residents that will be living there, right?
Well, that actually,
I was just over there just now.
That actually
and I don't have
poses
a problem. I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with the project. I mean, I don't think it's an ideal situation. I don't personally have a problem with this clustered PRC zone. I think it does give maximum an average. I agree. Statistically, averages are different than medians, but we do use averages, particularly in a PRC zone. It does give us a higher average. That's why we cluster. And Sean, I think I live in a PRC zone. Do I? I think I do.
It's a
similar type of PRC zone. Yeah, so I think there should definitely, I mean, I like living in there, but that's on the other side of town, and that's neither here nor there. But, where this plat sits, even where the density is, or the cluster, it's down on that flat, almost, it's not a hollow, but it's kind of the lowland, if you will, of that actual area. And I frankly I like not having houses further back. I do like that. It does preserve more of that open space for me, who doesn't live next to it, or those who do, to look up there and not see a house next to on the bench, right? We see plenty of that going on right now. If this was on 4 South, these clusters, I totally understand the big house on a small lot feels a little tighter. Totally understand that. This is a local traffic only road. I don't, if I drive on 4 South, I'm not going to know that those are 1/4 acre lots unless I'm going in there to look for someone. So I understand that concern with Clegg Canyon as you drive by that every single day. If the concern is small lots because of the big houses and it feels tight, I understand that. Often we get concerns about small lots because it affects my property values. If I live on a large lot, but these aren't going to be hovels, right? Clegg Canyon's what, $3 and $4 million homes? So I don't see the I haven't heard that tonight so much, but I think that's an underlying concern. I think we need to be realistic about that. You know, these are not going to be cheap homes. But I think the trailhead, I think those are valid concerns. I'm probably very flexible on the trailhead location. I think it's a great opportunity for the city as a whole, at large, to gain a trailhead sooner than later. We will eventually, maybe in the next generation, build out more of our trail plan that we all love and we all want. Every one that we have to put in that is not part of a development, you and I will pay for. That's just part of living in a city that has amenities. So that's an advantage of that piece, but that is one piece on this one. I'm open to looking at some other, you know, other options. But overall, and considering all things considered with this project, I don't think it's an ideal scenario for really anybody, but I think this is a viable solution, all things considered.
Is Reed still on?
Reed, do you have comments, questions that you'd like to make?
Yes, I do. On the map, or on the plat, I should say, there's quite a bit of areas that say unbuildable. Just across the line, right next to it, it says buildable, which means basically that it's safe to build a house on that one, but if you go across the line, it is not safe. If we were to go ahead and say and approve this plat, then I assume also that Mapleton would also take on the liability for certifying to a property purchaser that that parcel actually is buildable.
Yeah, so what would happen is
I don't know that, if there's an event that happens and there's destruction, I don't sure how liable the city is for the statement by somebody in the state saying that it's not buildable, and part of it is buildable. And is Mapleton kind of on the hook for certifying it if we accept the plat?
So Reed, yeah, I mean, the subdivision application process requires the geotechnical engineering to do an evaluation to make those determinations. We don't have a geotechnical engineer on staff, so we rely on the experts who are doing the evaluations. And so that's what gets reflected on the recorded plat, is the determinations made by the geotech. Rob, you got any other comments on that? Might help clarify.
Can you really quick point out the areas he's talking about that's buildable?
So he's talking on, these areas that are just below the fault line.
Oh, so he's saying that we're saying those are buildable?
Yes.
So we're taking on the liability, okay.
The only thing that I would stress is that the fact that we don't have a geotechnical engineer on staff is a normal thing. Cities don't employ geotechnical engineers. I worked for Provo before this, the biggest city in the county. We did not have a geotechnical engineer.
The line that you see is not the fault line. That's the recommended setback from the fault line. Right. So that's, the geotech identifies it, and then there's industry standards that say you should then be this far from that, and that's what that line reflects.
And then the building envelope is between that and the street.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Does that help, Reed?
Yes, I think that helps, but it kind of appears that we're backing it up, so I assume we have backup papers or certification from somebody else other than the city saying that basically this is buildable and that's not, this is unbuildable.
Correct.
One of my things relative to this also is the city better for doing it this way than it is the way we planned on it? And it's probably quite an arbitrary thing to probably try and decide, is it better or not, just based on everything like that. And this kind of seems to me that it's kind of really close on the line. I'm not quite sure if I'm really for it or not. I guess we'll just have to see.
I share some of the same concerns that have been expressed. This has been a difficult one because on one hand, for me, I actually am very supportive of PRCs. I think it's a wonderful tool in our toolbox. There are some beautiful conservation principles when you work with a PRC, especially when we're looking at water sustainability, where you cluster and you could have a better usage of water as opposed to watering these huge parcels. Not that you would on these particular ones, but I'm clarifying there is value in a PRC. I think there is value in a PRC here. Last time we met, we had requested a reduction in the lots. That has happened. There's still some things I fundamentally don't love about it. My request tonight at a minimum would have been an ask that those western lots that are half acres, I see no need for those two down at the bottom to stay half when they're abutting larger lots. Typically, we want to do the step down. Cameron used the word feathering, but it's really talking about the concept of really stepping down to the different zones. So my ask would have been to make that one lot. The question for me, a lot resides with, does that road differentiate the step down to a half acre? I'm not sure I'm there yet either way, but I do agree with the concept that those aren't necessarily, that it's not essential they're a half acre along there. There's been some interesting comments, and yes, during a public, when we have a public hearing item, it's not intended that we will be responsive to those. It's intended for us to receive feedback. Ideally, the feedback is something novel that we haven't previously considered. So I appreciate those of you who have spoken up and shared some things. Often we've already spent hours and hours and 220 pages prepping for tonight to consider a lot of those things. So I don't ever, in my dream bubble, citizens would understand we don't just come here and already have our minds made up and whatever. We do tons and tons of research on these. PRCs, I think they're great tools in the toolbox. I actually really love having a trail access point. Do I necessarily buy that this is exactly the right configuration? Not necessarily. We've had professionals with more expertise than I have worked on this. I think there is a challenge. I don't perceive any data that would suggest adversity related to surrounding property is evidence-based as opposed to feeling-based. That creates a challenge for me just internally to consider that. I appreciate even identifying that, but just like our conversation about, well, people may deface parks. They may engage in sexual activity at night in a kid area. I'm not gonna close down all the parks. So we need to solve what is the actual problem and not be afraid of having those things too. So I agree with Theron's point about this community wants trails. We want trail access. Whether this configuration is the one true or not, I think there's options there. I would prefer to have better access in terms of, I see people just turning around and around and around, and I really don't love the flow of traffic there either. But I'm not going to eliminate an amenity to the entire community that I am serving because non-proven information suggests there might be delinquency going on. I can't make a call based on that. In fact, I could make the opposite argument that we've already kind of hinted at, that if there is an increased flow of traffic, foot traffic, cameras, signage, and all that, it actually might decrease some of the current activity. So for the sake of that, I'm just gonna put the stake in the sand and say I don't believe it's necessarily better or worse. There's no evidence to support either that I'm seeing today. That said, this is really, it really is a tough one. I see there's definitely an argument on both sides for it. So I was hoping somebody would really persuade me either way or share some data that I hadn't seen yet. And that hasn't been the case. So I've been taking notes about what my argument would be for either side. I do think this is consistent with our intentions of the general plan and our interpretation of when and where we should use a PRC, but I do not think it's essential to have half-acre lots. What we rarely see at council, unfortunately, is all of the supportive people who either purchased land in this neighborhood, not adjacent, not abutting it, but in the neighborhood, who support it. And those people rarely show up to our meetings. Generally, we only hear the naysaying. So those of you who are sitting here or online perceiving that everyone is against this, that is also not factual. We've received many emails of people who say, this is a great solution, we value this over prior options. So please be aware, we have to consider all those things that, as Theron said, the greater good element. In this case, I don't know exactly what that is just yet, so if someone has the magic sauce on it. For sure, I was gonna say, Patterson, if you would walk in the door and throw those two lots together so that we don't run into a precedence issue that Mr. Garlitz raised, where the property that's just south of his, that there's I'm not concerned about precedence. Personally, we consider everything independently, but there is an argument that that would abut a jump in property size, and I also think to preserve the nature of the 1 acre lots that I anticipate on that property, I also have a strong argument for those bottom two to become 1. So that's my lengthy way of saying I'm not convinced either way. This mysterious easement scenario is throwing me off. We can't build on sand, but I haven't visibly seen that, if that exists there. Have you actually seen that on, you said it's not on the approved plat, but do we have a document that suggests it's only in that one sandy area that you
Yeah, it was
mentioned?
shown on a plan. I'll
So
show you.
it's really, that's a non-issue.
Yeah, I mean,
We
either way,
literally
that's
wouldn't build a trail on that even if an easement existed. Okay.
most likely.
That was one of my concerns. I thought it was a valid point that was brought up from a citizen, that if there is this thing we need to solve, then to buy the time for that. But if we wouldn't even want the easement, then that's a non-issue for me too. So now that I've rambled, anybody else want to add?
You may want to just ask if the applicant has any additional comments. Maybe there
Yeah,
may be
Mr.
something.
Can I
that's
ask,
helpful for you,
one
but-
quick question, though?
Sorry.
Just based on transportation plan, there's that stub road coming from the north into the Dwayne and Evelyn Walters property. Is
This-
that generally planned on being a dead end, or is that going to tie in here in any way?
No, when this property develops, there'll be a connection.
Okay.
So it may,
So it
you know,
could
it may be a
theoretically
long time, it may be
public
soon.
driving through there in the future.
Yeah, the anticipation is yes, that this will not remain a single access road.
Is it Ross? Is that Scott? I was going to say Mr. Patterson, so.
Yeah, Ross was here in November, and also not Mr. Patterson, Mr.
Scott.
Dunn, yes.
Scott, okay, Mitch Dunn.
Scott Dunn.
Scott Dunn.
Okay, yeah, so just, I would like to comment back on some of the public input. I do think there was some great input. So as far as the Sheranians on the north, we are flexible to work with them. We're not aware of any easement on any of our title reports, but here's what I am aware of. We had an approved plat that stubbed a road to him. We'd always planned on stubbing a road to him. We are okay and flexible on where to stub that road. I think the only issue that we have from what we've seen with all the work is where that road was previously stubbed that he was okay with is in the middle of a massive geologic hazard area. No one's saying we can't build a road on that feature. We've just approached it with the plan that says, let's not. We're willing to work with him. We can make that work however he needs. We're also very flexible with the trail. So developers are not the first ones to come off or build a trailhead and a trail. And on the original approved plat, it wasn't there. I will just have this pitch about the trails. I live next to a trail. When I bought my home, the trail wasn't there. It's the Murdoch Trail, which has got to be one of the busiest trails in North Utah County. Here's my take on the trails. I totally empathize with them. If I lived in the Sheranian home next door, I would not want the trailhead there. But seeing how many people use that trail, I've come to understand why government plans, master plans, the local governments that foresee this, they have to affect someone. No one wants the trailhead next to their house. But if you're going to get trails, you got to plan it and you got to put it in. We're just following that plan. We are very flexible with the trail, though. We're happy to work with staff, council, if you guys have other suggestions, whatever you guys need. The overwhelming feeling, I guess I'm getting, and we've heard that, just conveying the feeling of these half-acre lots. We're not necessarily happy about changing our acre lots to half-acre lots either. And the idea that the developer's doing this to make more money is just not true. There are fewer lots in this development. Rob, we can go count these after. There are fewer lots, and we have bought more property into the development. So the average lot size, of course, has gone up. Ultimately, if we're just talking about money, our profitability on this has gone down. We're not looking at this for money. We're looking at this from a creative solution of what do we do from here. And a lot of the public comments with the half-acre lots are either on the north or they're on the south or kind of the southwest. The plan was designed with the cul-de-sac that you currently see on this plan that's on the south side of the project. The previous plan had 4 lots on that cul-de-sac. This plan has 3. So the idea that everyone's going to see more homes just because they're smaller lots is just absolutely not true. And then on the north, there's 2 less lots that would be facing the Sheranian property. That's been taken into consideration of this plan. So coming from the developer's side, we're not necessarily happy with the half-acre lots either. We would love to have acre lots. If someone could just provide us with some guidance, and I think that's why we've already been here once and we've been working with staff a long time. If you're feeling like it doesn't meet the general plan and you're not liking the half-acre lots, we are very welcome to feedback, which is why we've approached you before, and we hadn't got this before. Those half-acre lots are specifically put in there, and there's fewer lots on the hill. There is less homes that people are going to see here. I do not understand, other than the public it's a feeling. They have this feeling. My response to that is, please, look at the approved plan and look at this plan. And let's do quantify it. How many lots are they going to see? It is less. And anything related to the density comment, it just absolutely is not true. There are fewer homes, less traffic than the previous approved plan. We've really tried to do everything we can to get this into a level that's palatable. We had the feeling like the direction from November put us on a path to go work down a direction. I genuinely have the feeling right now that the public comment has persuaded a few things, but I'm not necessarily hearing anything that's directive other than there are 2 lots on the 1 acre lot. That is the one thing I think is, if you guys do make a motion, I'm not saying that Patterson will accept this and be happy with it. I would understand with a motion that says put that back into a 1 acre lot. That is the one area that we've squeezed one more lot that someone will see. Happy to answer any other questions.
We appreciate that, Scott. And just by way of reference for those here who may not have participated or watched the November 15th meeting, we did have a discussion with Patterson Homes where the council it was a public conversation, and it was the direction that Mr. Dunn with the Patterson is referring to, as we had discussed the openness and favorability to a PRC zone, conditioned, of course, on a layout, but also heavily weighing out what those who already lived in the subdivision felt about the changes. And as Councilmember Egbert mentioned, we have received comments from those few people who do own lots in the subdivision, and they are very satisfied with the adjustments that have been made. So I share that with you simply for some context and for reference as you hear Scott talk about the direction that they were given several months ago. So I wanted to share that for context.
It's up to you.
You know what, can you be brief? Yeah, because we'll move on with any other additional questions and a motion.
My question would simply be, aside from all the density, let's just say it's going to stay the same. We still have the traffic coming in and out. My concern still is that trailhead and the access to our property. What would be wrong with doing the half-mile up Maple Canyon, entering into an agreement perhaps with the developer to where he could, instead of doing the development down here that's going to create traffic and all the other issues that we've talked about, help the city develop the trailhead at Maple to where they can come in, loop, and go back out? I think that would be a win-win.
I thank you for your question, and I don't know that we can say yes or no on that. I think it's.
Well, I think,
Do you want to comment on that?
yeah, absolutely. I think that is something that is a great question actually to bring up. That is certainly something we have done with other development coming in, is where there's an exchange, right? There's either a cash exchange, a property exchange, or whatever. I think that's a fair thing to suggest if we decide this trailhead location is not a particular benefit to the city. But I think it's a very good thing to bring up. The question is this location desirable to the city as a whole?
Great. I think it's a great suggestion.
I agree, I think it's a good option, for sure. And I don't disagree with anything that you said when you in your rebuttal. I 100% agree with most all of it. My biggest concern is the clustering of the half acre isn't increased density, but it's just all in one spot, and it's all kind of a wall, and it just doesn't feel like it would benefit Mapleton as a whole as far as the community goes. And so what kind of suggestions we could make, I think Jessica's suggestion about those two on the west side is a good suggestion. It's just, to me, the biggest problem is right there in the center cul-de-sac, where all those half-acre lots are similar to or close to half-acre lots are all kind of just clustered.
Even
all
though
in
there's
that one
one
spot.
fewer lot on one of those cul-de-sacs? Is that
Correct, yeah, and I completely agree that overall, we're 2, 3, 4 lots less than the density of the A2 zone with the TDRs applied. So it's not the density to me, it's the compaction of the smaller lots all in one spot.
I'm wondering, just as a possibility, I don't know if the applicant's interested in this, to let us, provide some more feedback and give us one more chance to look at a concept and see if there's something else that they're willing to do. I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, I'm inclined, I think we're really close on this one, and I want to be clear, my support was for a PRC last time. I spoke specifically with Ross about that. I've given specific feedback about this. I did request that we could meet with Patterson before coming in tonight, so that's an unfortunate. I wish we would have had a conversation where we could have given direct feedback, so I shared that with Sean today as I had talked to Ross to say, could you please just run it by us before you try and send it through? Any developer listening, you have access to us. Our cell numbers are online. Just talk to us. It will make all of our lives easier, so I'll put that on the table. I do agree. I think Patterson has done what we had asked in November in terms of reducing some of those counts. My preference in this situation would be to not vote on a approval or denial, but table this so that it can come back to the next meeting. We're not meeting on the 2nd, right? Next meeting? So that we aren't kicking a can for months and months and months, but to give instruction to the developer to consider eliminating one of those lots in favor of the larger one acre lot on the west, and to, I actually would love for the city itself to host a discussion about trail access options in that area. I would be very intrigued to see, here are 2 or 3 potentials, and what are the good and bad with those, and have a little bit more open dialogue about what that might look like, what the implications are to the community. That would be really valuable for me as someone who is not a trail expert, but as someone who is passionate about providing trail access as an amenity to the citizens as a whole. So I don't know what our options are there, but I'm not inclined to decline. I think that really sets back what is potentially going to be a beautiful project that will create open vistas. And frankly, if you don't pay attention to the legislature and how they are working to adjust, I mean, there are things on the table for the next legislative session that are the same things we fought this year, which are the automatic upzoning. If we kick the can on this, you might get something worse, is a little bit what I'm worried about. Because it is possible the legislature could come in and say, okay, all cities, you must upzone every zone so we can have more affordable housing. That's a real factor that we deal with all the time. That said, I'm not in the position of functioning out of fear. I actually think we're really close on what is beautiful, that is a sustainable product for the community. Now, there were many comments shared about the nature of these mansions on half acres. If they're within the scope of the city's ordinances, we can't deny those. So I appreciate if you don't love to see a giant house on a half acre lot, I can't govern that. If they meet our setback requirements, our height requirements, that's called property rights, and we honor those as well, just like we would want to on your property. So I hear you, but it's outside the scope of my ability with this. So it is what it is. So my recommendation to the council would be to table this to our next meeting, give Patterson an opportunity to address the one specific west side. Maybe there's another lot that can be pulled. I don't see, it's tricky with the existing roads and everything. It is a wonky plot. I actually think it's pretty decent. But also for us to get more feedback from the community, especially those who live in that development or have already purchased there, about their preferences with trail access. So really 2 action items on that.
Is that a motion?
I want to kick it back to the council for thoughts before I make an official motion.
One quick question on that, or as a statement first, is I really like the comment about the trailhead. I think we've done a lot of trail studies, and we paid a firm a lot of money to develop an idea and a plan, and this is the area where they put a trailhead. So I think we've already got that pretty much professionally advised. Now, could it be adjusted a little to the north or
mitigate
to the
some
south?
concerns.
Is maybe not, but are there other options? I think is a very valid thing to consider.
Keeping in mind that nobody wants it in their backyard.
Nobody wants it, yeah.
But having it
Nobody.
on the plat and built before you build a home next door to it is helpful.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is if we deny this, that doesn't mean that they can't bring back another one, right? There's setting or not continuing this doesn't necessarily make a difference between denying it, right? And I don't know that Pattersons are going to have enough time for the next meeting to put together a whole new plat plan, but maybe they do. Maybe you guys already have a.
If we deny, it has to go back through planning commission, right? But if we continue, it can come straight back to council.
When they're ready
Is
to do
that
it.
accurate?
Yeah, and I don't think you need to,
Different.
I don't think you need to put a date certain. That would give them the flexibility to work through
Yeah.
it. But
If it's continued, though, it doesn't allow those that really want that trailhead right there to voice their opinion. If it's continued, right, there'd be no public hearing at the next meeting.
If we have an open house where we gather feedback from the surrounding
Is
houses
that-
about preferences.
For me, that's what it's about, because in the code, public purpose for the amendment in question, if we're not gonna have a trailhead here, I don't see how this is a better plan. I don't see how it benefits Mapleton to go with this plan over the 2018 plan. So I'd be open to that as well, to get feedback from more individuals and letting us know if that trailhead does kind of tick some of the boxes.
Corey and Sean, what would the implications be to having sort of an open house that we'd probably have to notice? I'm sort of volunteering the staff for what I believe is the right solution for the long term. I believe a trailhead needs to happen.
I think, why don't we consider, I know you had mentioned at our last meeting that as part of our facilities, there was a survey that was going out to our residents. Perhaps we could incorporate a few
A, B, or C,
trailhead
yeah.
locations in that survey.
Okay, yeah, that's something.
And kind of get some general prioritization on issues.
That will certainly take more time.
Yeah, that's going to push it
That's
back.
true.
And there aren't really any other options, right?
Yeah, I'm
Open house
struggling
model.
to know how we would structure that, because it really is not, this isn't just to provide access for the few people that live around here. This is a community
It's for
access, right?
Yeah, it's for everybody.
Well, I think we see if, and to your point, if Patterson can continue it to the next time, see if you can work on the lots, and perhaps it's really incumbent on us as council members to do some outreach and see what feedback we can gather.
Can we pop-
And then make a public decision at one of our next meetings.
Well, and we have a great opportunity to gather public feedback with the Pioneer Days events coming up, where if you set up a booth with a couple maps on it and ask people to put a sticker on where they, I mean, like, we have opportunities to gather appropriate feedback from citizens for the long term.
But
So I don't know that, maybe the right answer we can't come
Yeah.
to today, it's after 8 o'clock, but if the fundamental principle is I'd love to gather feedback that either supports or is contrary to my perspective. I'd like the data from the citizens on it.
I think, to Darren's point, though, that is what the Trails Master Plan was. We surveyed, we had public open house, we had that provided.
guess my question-
I'm just a little unsure of how we
Asking
will
the
go
public
about
whether we
getting
should
that.
have, where the trailhead should be is not, to me, is not super helpful, because we already know this is where the trailhead needs to be in relation to the rest of the design. The only other options are the Sheranian's property, and they've already spoken.
Are there not, well, I guess I don't want to ask a question that there's not a different answer to. If it's like it's this or nothing, that's a different thing. So is it this or nothing? In which case, I don't need to gather feedback because there's not another option.
Yeah.
But is there an option at the end of Maple Hill Circle? Is there an option, where it's not sand? I guess I'm looking for, are there choices or are there not choices?
I think there are always choices. It comes with what kind of price tag you want to put into it, right?
You know, what's possible is all out there.
So Sean,
for
do we
sure.
have feedback on, I mean, you probably know this, being in the trenches every day. Is this it in terms of this location? Is it something that would be a better location within this plat that we just move somewhere better? What other options have we considered, or are there none?
Logan, do you have any thoughts on this too? I know Logan and I have walked the site several times, and everywhere we've gone, it's been extremely, anywhere along the face of it is very steep and it's very sandy. And without expertise, we really weren't sure, and that's why Patterson hired a professional to come out, and he walked the entire property and said, this is your best spot. Doesn't mean conceivably we could create something somewhere else. We probably could, but according to a trail planner's perspective, this was the best spot.
That's helpful, I appreciate, and I'm sure I didn't quite understand it before. I didn't know if we had validated this place or if they had selected it of many, so.
No, we were actually thinking
This
more over here, and the trail planner was like that you won't be able to maintain the trail in that.
Well, and one of the things we might have a discussion on at a different time might be some standards or expectations around trailheads, particularly when they are in neighborhoods, to mitigate some of, look, I wouldn't want to live next to a trailhead either. But if I buy a lot where there is a trailhead, I know full well what I'm buying into, and hopefully, and I don't know what those standards are, but perhaps that's a conversation we could have at a different time.
I think that's.
It also identified some of those already in our master
Ready?
plan, not specifics to obviously
backyards and placements of a trailhead, but specifications of what a trailhead should be and could be.
Bathroom
Correct,
stalls.
those types of things.
New stalls.
And aside from what Patterson has done with their trails, I do want to emphasize, I mean, I'm not a great hiker. I spent way too many steps going up and down to try to identify with our consultants who do not live here. In fact, they're New Jersey and Colorado and California, you know, and this is what they do. They live and breathe trails. And so, you know, I think as we walked it again and again and again and again, you know, this did become the spot. One thing I am a little concerned about, just off conversation, when we're starting to talk about Whiting Campground jurisdictionally, or in the jurisdiction, that's not ours to control what it is. And so I get a little worried where we're like, oh, just give them access up there. Well, that's not our property to then say, you know, we get a lot of comments on the trail coming down Whiting. Well, that's Forest Service property. We take that phone call, we can pass it along. Surely we want to be, you know, partners with them, but we can't control. And so I get a little leery when there's one to the south, we'll just tell them. I get a little uncomfortable when we've already heard the parking lot is inadequate, it can't fit what they have, and it's not ours to say, let's go do this. So.
Is that, the horse, the horse parking lot there, that's owned by the Forest Service?
Correct. Okay. Yeah, so I think it's just a point that, as I was taking some notes, I think that's something we need to realize. This is an opportunity. We don't, you know, as a developer, they don't have to do this. You know, we're identifying, as Sean has said, from the general plan to the Trails Master Plan to the Parks element, trails, they did their due diligence in working with us to at least note that, you know, no expense for us, but yet a trade for a very key trail access, where we do have control, where we can say yes, 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 which then gets them to public lands, right? When they're on public lands, yes, we can't. They're gonna wander and do their things, but this gives us a little bit of control to try to mitigate some of those problems. We don't solve the problems, but I feel this is a good compromise on trying to help mitigate.
Great point, Logan. Thanks for sharing that.
It's helpful.
Is the concern more of the trailhead or the trail in your minds?
To me, the trail access right there is the biggest draw. I mean, it's the spot we need,
Right.
It's the spot we want. To me, that's not the kicker, because to me, that's the draw. That's to me man, we gotta do this. This is like prime for our trail access plan. To me, it's the lots that's stopping the whole thing.
And I think with that guidance, we can go back and discuss and see if Patterson's open to something else. That'll have to be for them to decide. But I mean, it seems clear that the major hangup is over the number of the half-acre lots. Is that fair for those that are opposing?
Yeah, and if a continuation is more streamlined for them to come back with another possible, then I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah.
And it may be they come back and say, we want you to vote on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's fine.
Yeah, I would expect, just for the sake of clarity, I would expect those two lots on the west to be merged, and consideration given to the half acres, identifying more opportunities, even to put some 3/4 there. But I'm personally not as hung up on those halves on that side of the road. So those of you who can give some clear direction to Patterson on where you are hanging up, I'd encourage you to do it. My hangups are on the side that those are abutting existing lots that are already above 1 acre. I would like to protect that.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's my direction.
To me, it's pretty clear. It's just for the same argument that you're having on the west side, that it needs to be more of a transition buffer. To me, it's the same on the other side. We've got a stack of half acres buffering unlimited space. So to me, it should be bigger lots. Fewer bigger lots is my direction.
Do you have any specifics with lot numbers that you're
Yeah, 'cause you
hoping
got
to
the fault
change?
line that
Yeah.
really is a barrier to adding
Correct, yeah,
big
and
lots.
correct. I completely understand that, but, and I'm not a neighborhood designer. I don't do plats for a living, so I don't know how to come up with an idea of, to me, it just means less lots and bigger lots. The current plan that's approved is 1 acre, and to me, it's not, just because there's a fault there doesn't mean that we have to put in a bunch of, or allow a bunch of smaller lots, right? To me, the developer bought it knowing there was a fault line there, and when the geotech came back, they were judicious, they did a lot of work, they came up with an idea. I just can't swallow the idea.
Well, I think what we've heard, though, is Scott, right? Scott's willing to receive the feedback, but we need to give some clarity
some
on specific
specifics.
Yeah.
lots. So I don't think the issue is Patterson's trying to pull a fast one with the geotech.
Correct.
I don't think
Correct,
that's,
yeah.
I think what we can do to facilitate the process, including with, I mean, we really aren't hearing from as many neighbors who are directly touching this, which is curious for me, but is it the ribbon along 2000 East that we're talking about? Because there's a half acre in the one cul-de-sac, 404, so I'm asking Theron, is it 306, 401, 405, 406, 407? Those 5 right there? Does it include what's in the cul-de-sac? Because if I'm unclear, I can't
So
help.
this is where goes back to my comment. I'm not a neighborhood designer. I can't say if you get rid of this one and move this one that I'm going to feel good about it. It's just 2 stacked all right along that road.
You want to see a
Okay.
new plat,
So like
a
what-
totally new design.
You're just hitting on minimum 1 acre.
Well, I would love to see minimum 1 acre. That's my ideal.
I'd love to see
But-
no fault line
but
up
the-
there, but
But the,
It goes north and it goes south.
yeah.
So, Casey, I mean, I don't want to belabor, but I'd love to give some clarity so that when we have a decision that we're going to make, that it's easy to make the decision.
no, I don't have major concerns about this design. I think it's very well worked. I think you've given some very specific feedback. To the degree you feel about those 2 lots, I don't share it to that degree, but that's great if that's a 1 lot, right? That's great. So I don't have any specific feedback. I'm okay with it how it is. I think if we can touch up and work on that trailhead access, that piece, that'd be great. I want to be very mindful of the Sheranians' access. I don't want a road built over a fault line, so when it gets destroyed, the city has to then rebuild it. That would be my concern with that. But I think we can work through those things. I think we can work through those. So no, to your point, I don't have anything specific, and I don't know maybe if Councilmember Beck does.
Combining 308s and 307, that'd be important. I don't know, I'm even looking at this wall of homes on 2000 East and even combining some of those, perhaps 306, 401.
Does Reed have any?
Those combining would be awful to have a front and back on a road. But I think the point is, look at those 5, the 306, 401, 405, 406, 407, and there might be within those, there's a group of 4 and there's a group of 4, and maybe there's some movement that can happen, like your 402 is 1.16. That's the easiest one to move. So I think there's a couple. I'm with Councilmember Jones. I think we're this close on it.
Would you like to make
I'd like to make a motion to continue this item with no specific date pending Patterson's opportunity to respond to the concerns.
Second. We have a motion to continue this item. Councilmember Egbert has made a motion to continue this item. It has been seconded by Councilmember Jones.
Is it myself? Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Okay, that item has been continued to a later date. Scott will continue working with you with staff on that, and hopefully we can get some feedback going before the next meeting.
Scott, can I make a recommendation before you come back? Reach out to especially those who had, like you can reach out to Councilmember Garrett and say, here's what we're thinking, does that align? That way we don't
Yeah, if it's,
waste time.
if it's not, if it's not out of line, send me a plat design, just a
We're
really rough
very
idea.
open to conversation. Don't wait a month and then throw something and see if it sticks. Talk to us. Thank you.
Sean,
Yes.
can you, the question has been asked, will there be another public notice for that meeting?
We'll send a public notice, yes.
There will be a public notice.
It'll be up to the council if you reopen the public hearing. Public hearing has been closed, but if it's changed enough that you want feedback again, you can open it up.
Okay, so
That'll be up
please
to
be
you.
mindful of that. There may or may not be public comment at that meeting because it has been closed.
However, you can come and comment on any topic at the beginning of the meeting, just not within the scope of the formal public hearing. There's always a recourse for citizens to share feedback via email, phone, or come at the beginning of a meeting. So even if we don't formally open the public hearing,
You can express your opinions
We
in
are all very
one way or
welcome
another.
to
Yeah.
emails and calls, so please, don't hesitate.
Okay. And that's a 2-week notice, Sean? Is that right?
10 days.
10-day public notice for that meeting.
likely July 17th is our next meeting, so.
Middle
That
of
would
the
be
month.
the earliest. Council
That's
always
the
meets on
earliest,
the first and third Wednesdays of the month, but we will not meet on July 3rd. But still, our next meeting is July 17th, but.
So if you're in the pickleball tournament or the toss, cornhole, you got to pick. Okay, we're moving on to item number 10. This is a consideration of a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget, the position list and fee schedule. Bryce Euler.
Thank you.
This is a topic that affects everybody in the city, and they
I
all
know.
leave.
I was just gonna, I felt a little snarky after 2 hours to be like, and no.
Maybe we should put that item ahead of, this type of an item
So we
ahead of
force
any of the
people to
others.
learn
Force them.
about
Yeah.
municipal budgeting.
Yeah.
Mapleton 101.
Go ahead,
So
Bryce.
All right, thank you. I have sent the budget to the council, mayor and council. It has been available to the public. And we have discussed and adopted a tentative budget, just so the public is aware that we have had these conversations. The discussion we'll have tonight is a very broad overview. The general fund budget is totaling $10.5 million. In that general fund budget, there's a $476,000 surplus that will be transferred to the capital funds project, excuse me, capital projects fund. And it is not in the budget, so we are adding it in this discussion, excuse me, as a $1,000 increase to the MYCC budget. They've reached out to us and since the budget was sent to you and have requested those additions for their additional activity. And then this was discussed previously. There are still 3 new positions being budgeted for the public works, 2 public works operators and an executive assistant at the Public Works Department. And again, we have met with the Budget Committee and have discussed this with the Budget Committee and want to leave the time open for the other council members to have it, ask any questions.
There's just a question. When will we know if there's a surplus or deficit on the previous year budget?
So the process that we go through on that, you'll see tonight in our budget amendment public hearing item that we're making a budgeted estimate, but until we actually close our books, we won't know the actual dollar amount, but we're budgeting a surplus in fiscal year '24, and we'll discuss that in further detail
Maybe,
in
Ben
another
Bruce,
item.
when the auditor comes, that's when it gets finalized. that
Correct,
we-
so
we have
so
the-
we've got until December 31st to present that to you, but that timeframe is usually November, December timeframe that we'll have that discussion.
Okay.
I like the additional investment in the youth city council, especially if it means they get to do some more legislative-related things.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
They
What's
pointed
their-
out
What's their total current budget? How much is this?
this will
increase
put it at
percentage-wise?
just over 8,000. This will put it at 8,500.
For MYCC?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it.
And they do a lot of work for us, a lot of service for us, and
Yeah.
they're worth every penny of it.
$1,000 is nothing.
I don't have any questions, but Reed often gets into the line items on this, so I'll defer to Reed.
Are they helping this year with Pioneer Days? They are, NYCC is?
Thank heaven.
I know they have been in the past, yeah.
I was curious, so a year ago, I think it was budgeted to hire someone in HR, but it's not included in this year's budget. I don't know if there's any.
So we did budget for that last year, and we don't usually repeat that in the budget. Corey, do you want to address that one?
It's still something we've been watching closely, but not at a spot where we're ready to move forward on that. But it could be 6 months from now we come in the
But it's
mid-year
budgeted,
budget.
but it's budgeted from last year's, no?
It's not budgeted in this,
This one's, it's not, but it isn't last year, but it'd have to carry over to.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not being carried over.
No, it is not being carried over
Correct.
from last year.
Oh,
So
okay. I
if
was
we
understanding it
decide to in the future, say in 6 months, we can come back and ask for an amendment to the budget, and make that change then.
Typically, that would be the case.
We budgeted for a firefighter position potentially last year. Is that
So
one being?
that is still being carried over in this budget. But again, last year and tonight it was mentioned that nothing will move forward on that until we have a further conversation with council and
Correct, yeah.
present the need for that.
But knowing the money's there is a big difference. Okay.
Great, thanks, Bryce. Any other questions or comments? Reed, do you have anything?
No, don't think I do.
Okay, well, if that being the case, the public hearing, excuse me. We have this item open for public hearing. Seeing as there is nobody in the room now, we will now close public hearing and open this up for a motion that I will make. I make a motion to approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 24-25 budget, the position list, and fee schedule.
Second.
A motion has been made by Councilmember Jones and seconded by Councilmember Garrett. Sorry.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Okay, thank you, Bryce.
Thank you. I'm still here.
Up for the next one.
Oh, that's right.
Item 11. We've got a couple items tonight.
All right, go ahead, Bryce. Oh, you're here for the rest of them. Can I get you a drink? Okay, go ahead on this next item, item 11.
All right, so this is also a public hearing item. Each year, as we make transfers from enterprise funds, as they are enterprise funds, we are required to disclose those transfers and have a public hearing on those items. These transfers are mostly for our vehicle replacement fund, to follow our vehicle replacement plan, and as well as to demonstrate the amount of utilities the city pays to our enterprise funds. I have no further comments to add to that, so if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, we'll now open this item up for public hearing, and there is nobody here. We will now close it from public hearing. Close the public hearing and open this up for comments, discussion, or a motion.
Any questions? Do we have to read all that?
You do?
No.
Yes.
No? I think
I'll
you
make a
do.
motion to approve the interfund transfer as described in item 11.
Second that. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Egbert, a second by Councilmember Jones. Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Item number 12, Mr. Euler.
Okay, in 2020, go through the history of that briefly. Spanish Fork began construction of a sewer processing plant, and as we are member owners of that plant, we agreed to repay them our share of the bond that they took out. Since 2020, costs increased quite significantly. However, thanks to some grants and other funding sources, our share increased by $5.6 million. And fortunately, within our original planned rate increases, we did not need to do any further rate increases past the original plan. So this budget year is our original planned final rate increase. So for a sewer connection with one ERU, so your standard home, the rate increase, the monthly rate increase will go from $56 to $66.14, which is a little bit less than our original. We kind of anticipated anywhere from $68 to $78 being our final rate. That's not to say sewer rates will not increase. However, they will not increase due to the current project that is happening. Rob, is that a fair way to say that? Okay. And this is a public hearing item. Anytime we increase our enterprise rates, we go through the public hearing process. So turn the time over to council for any questions.
No questions from me, but comment that I'm super pleased with how we handled that, and I think we were kind of overestimating, and while every year a big jump in sewer rates was a big hit to take, I think we've done a very judicious thing in planning for that. And despite the increase in the costs and the millions and millions of dollars of increase, it's super exciting for me to be able to tell the public that this is our last jump. So
I think the wording was that most likely there wouldn't be any additional increases. What would cause there to be an increase in the future?
Rob, do you have any, in the future, let me address that first. In the future, all sorts of scenarios could cause rate increases.
To build the plant, I guess.
Specifically to the plant, Rob, do you have anything to?
Yeah, I would just say that I've been going to the meetings, there's a low risk of there being, some added cost that we're unaware of at this point. It's pretty far along. In fact, they've offered that if we want to set something up for y'all to go into the plant where it stands right now. Yeah.
For sure, let's do it.
Okay, well, I'll get something set up with some available times, and we'll get that set up. But it's far enough along, and they've ordered enough of the equipment, and there's still enough of the contingency in there that's left.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, all hell could break loose, and sometimes does, but it's pretty low risk at this point.
Boy, if it's half as interesting as that transfer station,
yeah,
I think we are.
Who knew?
I mean, really, I'm all in on a tour of the sewer.
I'll tell you what, plant tours are way cool, but if you're gonna visit a trash plant and a sewer plant before they open is the time to go, so let's do it.
Agreed.
Okay, great. Public hearing. We'll open this item up for a public hearing. And seeing as there is no one here, we will now close this item from public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the sewer rate increase.
Second, a motion has been made by Councilmember Beck to approve this resolution and seconded by Councilmember Jones.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egger, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes. Okay, Bryce, item 13.
Things struggling, sorry.
There we go. Okay, so this is our current fiscal year's budget, the amendment of that, of this current fiscal year. We have had these discussions with council. We've sent the packet out to council, and this budget is to get us through the remaining fiscal year. Now, if there are expenses that were not in the original budget, and they are now in this budget, and if they are significant expenses, those, our policies require that those be brought before you prior to those being spent. So you have already approved some of the expenses. We're just now catching the budget up on some of those situations. And I have included explanations for each individual amendment that we are making within the budget. So this fiscal year 24, which will be over in a couple of weeks, our budgeted projection is that we'll have $676,000 of reserves. I have placed within this budget some wording based on the guidance of our auditor that allows us to transfer any amount needed to keep us from exceeding 35% reserves in the general fund. So, so we're going to have some flexibility there. That may increase once we close our books a little bit better. Keep in mind, we receive invoices for this fiscal year clear up until sometime September. So it's quite the process and quite the guess at with some of these line items. And then you'll have noticed a general fund revenues increases by over $1 million. Interest revenue has been significant, and we are mostly adjusting the general fund revenues to account for $500,000 of interest revenues. And that is from our monies that we have at the Utah PTIF, our main savings accounts. And then also remember that our fiber internet fund and our enterprise funds are also earning significant interest on some of their items. Those were the main amendments that I wanted to point out to you guys, but you have had some time to review the other amendments, so I'll turn the time over to you.
No questions.
Questions, comments? Okay, we'll now open up this item for public discussion and close this item for public discussion, considering there is nobody in the room. Are there any other comments or questions or motions to be made?
I make a motion that we approve the resolution amending the fiscal year 2023-24 budget as has been explained.
Second, motion to approve has been made by Councilmember Garrett and seconded by Councilmember Jones.
Reed, you're up.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Okay, great. Now we're going to move on to a discussion item. Bryce, you're up.
Okay, thank you. There is no action required on this. We're just required by the state auditor to perform this self-assessment. Council should understand, or the point that we want to get across is that staff places a lot of emphasis on ethical behavior and fraud detection and fraud prevention, and a lot of our trainings are given to us on ethics and fraud prevention. Though it is impossible to prevent all fraud, we did score a very low risk level for fraud to occur in Mapleton, which is great and where we want to be. We have a lot of controls in place to detect fraud. That is one thing that keeps me up at night, is thinking about fraud that does occur in other cities and what are we doing to mitigate that. And it's impossible to completely mitigate that, but we do have some protections in place, such as separation of duties and dual controls when items are purchased, that multiple people have eyes on those items being received. We require staff and council to sign a commitment to ethical behavior. And our city policies that we have in place also help us mitigate fraud. Yeah, we do what we can to mitigate fraud, and turn the time over for a discussion.
Is this a jump from last year? I think we were at very low last year too, right?
Yeah, we're in the same exact as we have been for the last 2 or 3 years.
And the only chance to become perfect is pretty actually heavy of a licensed or certified CPA or one of the other things. But I think even a couple of years ago, we had an opportunity to increase the hours of education that staff receive. And so I think we've made progress over a few years of providing educational opportunities. So that was a win, but I don't have any comments.
Wonderful, Bryce. What do you need from us?
Nothing.
Well, we sure
Just-
appreciate
Thanks,
you
Bryce.
Thanks for the
coming.
discussion.
Thank you. All right, we'll open up now for administrative reports, and then we will entertain a motion to close the general session and move into a closed session. John?
Just everything is going well on the sewer treatment plant. Like I said, I'll set up a time for y'all to be able to go and take a look at the progress. The project is going well up the canyon as well. We're looking like, as I think I said in my the administrative reports that we emailed a couple of weeks ago, they're actually got a couple more crews, and so we're ahead of schedule. We have through the projection was through the end of the fall to finish the project. It looks like it's going to be mostly done by the end of July. There's maybe some things to button up still, but and then the paving, the time that the Forest Service gave us is in September, but it'll be mostly complete by the end of next month. So that's going well, and we found more water than there was kind of a. This is what the minimum is to make it worth it, which was in the 1,000 to 1,200 gallons per minute. We were hoping that we could get 1,500, and we think we don't have all the measurement devices in yet, but we think we're more like 1,800, somewhere in that range. So it's been a good project, maybe even 2,000. So it's been a great project.
Thank you.
I won't steal all Chief's thunder, but we had the Youth Police Academy start last night, and kudos to all of our awesome officers and staff. Lori was there too, that put that on. It's such a cool thing to observe. That's every Tuesday for the next little bit. So if anyone wants to participate, I'd encourage you to go take a look. It's pretty fun. Also real serious. They dug in fast on tough topics. So kudos on that program. It was cool to have an officer from Springville come to observe so that they can implement their own. So big kudos to our public safety department on that. Community Preparedness Committee is active, looking to prepare some things for Pioneer Days and then working on our next community education session. And as I noted earlier, I have great angst once again with the upcoming legislative session, hearing just the word on the street. And you're aware there was a special session called today. Plenty coming up with land use, those words upzoning and affordability, incentives versus carrots, minimum lot sizes, still limited chatter about addressing that builders are not building small houses. So it feels like a little bit of Groundhog Day. So TBD, there's still a long time to come, but it's going to be one to watch again.
NYCC finished their kids camp. I had 2 of my kids that went, and they both loved it. So that's all I have.
No report.
I don't have anything either.
Reed, do you have a report, or administrative report?
Just a little bit. The transfer station, the old one, is in the final stages of dismantling and dismembering. The new station seems to be working really good in a number of ways. The seniors are also glad that they're getting a new floor in the exercise room, and they had a great social kind of to finish out the summer last June. So everything's okay, I think.
Great, thank you, Reed. Camille? Corey?
A couple of things for you. First, as mentioned earlier, we're planning on not holding July 3rd city council meeting, so we'll keep you posted on that. With that said, then we'd be moved to that July 17th meeting. For the 17th, we do have a couple of items just to be aware of. One is we're still working with Ron on that survey and getting closer on that we'll be able to come to you as a council for that, just a final look at it. And Ron does a great job. I'm excited for what he's put together so far, and this will be a good thing for us and for our community to get some input from them. With that said, also Rob will be bringing forward some discussion to start on that, the sidewalk master plan and some of the projects that we're proposing to move forward on. So kind of look forward to that on the July 17th timeframe. Also, as you recall, there was an email sent out about a month ago with the proposal from a neighborhood over by Colin Allen's house when he passed away, that they'd like to have their street changed to his name. So as a staff, we prepared a letter to be sent out that each of the homeowners would need to sign. I think, what is there, about 17 lots in that subdivision, somewhere in there. And there's a few of them have reached back out saying they're not interested in signing that. Primarily, it's a little bit challenging in regards to, you gotta record it at the county, then you gotta make notification to Postal Service and EMS and public safety and those type of things. It gets a little tricky as far as what's our address. So with that said, they've come back with a proposal of not doing that, but maybe just putting up a plaque there. What we would like to do as a staff is just discuss a little bit more and see if there's maybe something else we would do instead, just to recognize him and all of his efforts in our community. So if you hear from any of the residents there, that's where we're at this point, is going to review and see if there's some other options. We're a little concerned with the plaque idea, just that then every neighborhood's going to want something on their sign as well. So we'll keep you posted. And Logan will probably hit on that. We're getting the final draft done as far as the Pioneer Day magazine that's going out, and the mayor's message is talking about Colin, both throughout his messages, just discussing what he's done for our community. So we got a few other ideas that I think might work for that. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Corey. Logan. You should ask Chief Jackson to jump in line, or get ahead of you. He's last.
Yes. Best for last.
All right, a couple things. One that I wasn't planning on talking about, but based on conversation tonight, I thought maybe was good information to share. So an individual today out of New York actually called me. They have an RFP out right now to do a master trails plan. And Avid Trails had put in to submit for theirs, and so he was doing his due diligence and trying to, learn about the process. And in talking with him, and some of his colleagues that are on, East Coast, our plan is actually one of the benchmark plans that is out there in the trails community. So I do want to emphasize, and then today when we had another meeting, it was talked about our trails and our survey and meeting with Ron, and he had said, you had really good response from that survey. And so I think that was just good information based on today's conversation, that I feel like, we did the right thing on getting that plan put together, but also now it's one that's being looked at, as far as New York, to something for communities to, to have in place. So I think it's, as we continue to grow, there's always going to be those hiccups and barriers, but that's been instrumental in conversations I've had and, a staff that we've had. So I just wanted to bring that up. Pioneer Days, we're here. So every year we're like, we got a little bit of time, but we're here. We're less than a month away. So a lot of time and effort and energy has gone into it. We're super excited. It'll be a fun week. A couple new events that'll be this year we touched on last time, but you should start seeing a lot more social media. Banners went out today. Magazine will go out about the second week in July. We found one of the things I just want to touch on with the magazine is meant to be a guide, not as I need to register. So the magazine will hit a mailbox when registration is closed. So that's why we try really hard to be pushing that via other channels. And that magazine is meant to just be a week-long guide to plan activities and show up and be part of it.
That seems a little wonky to me. How can we?
It's really.
People won't have seen this social, and they'll get the magazine and be like, "Oh, that graphic is really attention-catching. I'd love to participate in pickleball." How can we?
Yeah, and Spanish Fork, Freedom Festival, all of the ones. I don't know if there's an answer to that.
Do it earlier. Can we release it earlier?
Yeah, I mean.
You know what, I think what you would do earlier is, my concern with doing it earlier, you'd have to do it because you've had those banners up for a month?
They just went up last week, actually.
Oh, just last one, not.
Because we don't.
I swear I saw them a month ago, but I
Because
can't
people
remember.
don't start thinking about Pioneer Days till July.
Maybe what we do at this point, obviously, it's too late to make a change this year, but we'll monitor that. We'll see what your numbers come in as far as registration.
Yeah.
And if they're low, then that's something we need to do. But if they're capped out, then
Yeah, I mean,
we're
the way
we'll
we're
watch it.
headed is, similar to what we've been in the past, so there's not an area of concern that way. It's just always that balance between getting information in their hand, but not being too early that the magazine goes in the trash,
That
but then
would be
it's
my concern.
informative, so.
I would,
but-
I just don't want to frustrate people who aren't as connected digitally.
For sure.
And then get something in their hand, and then they go to be like, oh, I might be interested, and it's like registration closed. Now, if our numbers are full and we're at max anyway, that's a totally different issue,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah,
We'll watch that. Let's
Yeah,
watch it.
I definitely think it's worth noting to watch it, but then also, it has been in the newsletter, it was in the June newsletter, will be in the July newsletter. So if they aren't connected that way, there's always avenues. We have 8 locations across town where the banners and things, so hopefully, we put posters up in.
How many years is this that we've done the actual magazine?
Third.
It's just
Yep,
third,
third
right?
year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if we build in repeatability and everybody understands that the magazine comes in that after, then I think it lessens the frustration, but.
Yeah.
But I can see there's.
It's a balancing act.
Logistical balance that has to happen.
Yeah, for sure. So anyways, I wanted to bring that up just because I do know that sometimes that is a question that gets asked, so I wanted you guys to all be aware of that. But other than that, we're chugging right along. We're ready for a fun week, and hopefully everybody can show up. I will have a packet for each of you that'll have, information for that week with the schedule, your shirts, the parking passes, things of that nature that I'll get to you probably that first week in July. just
Well,
so
we
you
can
guys-
help share, encourage people on our own social to register early.
Yep, and that was just gonna be my next point, is as you see stuff, and now we're getting closer, just if you can do your part on getting it out, that's always helpful.
Remind me, is there one deadline for all of them, or is there?
No,
each
they're
one
all.
has their own deadline?
Yeah, they're all varying, yeah. So, and the hardest part on deadlines is, obviously, we have to have a turnaround to get things, so like the parade, that's always a big question on why do we have the deadline when it is? It's, there's a lot of logistics that go on behind putting 70 people to go down the road safely, as Chief is always, asking. So there's a lot more than just the deadline, and same with our events and programs and stuff, so.
Okay.
And then just wanted to touch on, so you had, Councilman Beck had talked a little bit about the summer camp that our youth city council put on. So the last couple years, that's been kind of our main summer camp. We haven't really had any other offerings. We usually get about 60 to 70 kids in that. This year, we were able to add some other camps, clinics for pickleball and tennis, art camps and art classes. We almost, about 250 is what we were at this year. So it was awesome to see our numbers go up, but then also our services to our kids, specifically in the summer months. So that was really fun to see on top of our youth city council camp, which was awesome. We had nothing but good feedback, and Mackenzie and her group did a great job on that. And then the last thing I would just want to touch on, we are seeing a big uptick in vandalism and also just carelessness. So last week we had some kids on the e-bikes, and we're not going to solve the e-bike, but we had just prepped the baseball field. We were down there. I was talking with some of our staff, and these kids are just jumping up over the mounds. And it was the end of the day. I was a little flustered, so I was like, these kids are going to get it, and I apologize. They were in 4th grade and just didn't know anything, and, being talked to, So I don't know what the solution is or the answer is. We're trying to actively find what it is. We just had a door get ripped off down at Ira Allen. That was $1,500. We had 5 gates get ripped off. Those are about $150 a piece. Toilets, I can't tell you how many hand soap dispensers. We don't even do towel dispensers anymore because I couldn't keep them on the wall fast enough or keep them stocked fast enough. So it's a real problem, and I don't think it's out of spite. I think it's literally kids just don't know how to respect and
Kids
care.
haven't been taught how to respect things.
Yeah. So that is something that we're trying to find a way, you know, obviously, I think that's why we're trying to add more programs, specifically in summer months. Let's engage them in good activity. We can also bring them under our umbrella and say, look at what we're doing, please take care of these facilities. But just wanted you all to know that it is something that specifically this year among the last couple has been really, really tough. And so we're at the point on some of them that if it keeps going, we're just gonna have to lock the facilities because, you know, I feel bad for our staff each day having to go in and pick up after it, and that puts off other responsibilities and things. And so
What's our security camera situation on these?
nothing.
Well, that's part of the problem.
Yeah,
So
so-
I'd love to see us find a solution related to security cameras that connects to public safety as well.
Mapleton City Network.
That would be great.
I've
That's our
offered
solution.
my house for an internet connection for 5 years now, so
Yeah.
you're welcome to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we had solved some of that, so I would really, Corey, if you'll lead up
Yeah.
on figuring this out. We're behind on security,
Absolutely.
probably lighting.
Yep.
I think
There's
that's
keyless
really critical.
access to bathrooms where they lock at night, and, you know, when the park's closed, you know, we do have an ordinance that says 10:30, you know, and a lot of times kids
But I
are out
think we
past
also
that.
have to be a little brave, maybe a little more aggressive on how we educate. I mean, I've seen some cities really helping parents understand what their kids are doing by sharing a still from a security camera with the child's face blurred out, but say, did you know in our community, this group of kids has been vandalizing here, here, and here? If you-
I'd love to show their faces,
know-
but I know you can't do
Yeah,
that.
we blur them.
And their
I've had that
photographs.
thought as well, but I think
And the
it's
name.
probably time. I mean, it is tax dollars. It's sort of an all hand on
It is.
deck, not in terms of just staff, but our community they need to understand this is happening. And the only way we can help with that is to tell them it's happening.
Yeah.
There's a cost to
Need
their
to be brave.
disengagement. Yeah.
To be brave and say,
I totally agree. I think the uptick is concerning, and if we had any kind of statistics to be able to educate, and just, even if it was just a newsletter article that says, hey, look,
costs.
parents, look at this. We know that you don't believe your kid's doing this, but
Here's their
the
picture.
numbers are staggering, and the uptick is such that you need to at least have a conversation with your kids.
Yeah, we've
No,
got an
I-
What
awesome
needs to
photo
happen,
library.
Logan, what needs to happen for security cameras?
So first of all, was just getting the internet there.
Oh,
So
right.
we're down the choo-choo train on that one. Now it's just working with Phil on making those connections. You know, unfortunately, we're not gonna prioritize our stuff over connecting our residents. You know, that was first and foremost. So at least in my conversations with Phil, that's kind of been the narrative so we just made a connection to the Ira Allen, through the parking lot into that one. That one was a big one we wanted to do. But again, just on that priority, you know, he talked a little bit in our work session a month or so ago, that queue of installations. And so we're just trying to make sure we can plug in without just saying, we need to jump it because we're the priority.
well, if
So
you
I think
want,
it's finding the balance between those.
I owe Madison a council corner for Friday, and we were gonna talk about, community preparedness and 24th and whatever. It'd be real easy for me to throw some things about.
Be great.
Yeah,
You
that'd
get
be
me
awesome.
some numbers tomorrow, even if it's really broad, and talk about the increase. Give me some specific examples of things that we've
Absolutely.
seen. I would be glad to at least drop a little bit of truth bomb in that, and sort of a, did you know that your kids are doing this? It's not, people can't blame some kids from another community. They're ours.
Yeah,
So, yeah, if you'll send me those by the end of the day tomorrow, that would be
yeah,
cool.
yeah, I can for sure do that. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So, because that was mainly why I wanted to bring it up, is just if there were examples of other cities or things that we've seen, you know, I want to help solve the problem and make sure we can keep them safe, and, you know, and I think it does come down to education. So
Great.
anyways, that's what I got.
Hey, really quick, going back to Pioneer Day, how are we doing on volunteers? Do we have sufficient at this point projecting?
Yeah, we're about half what we need. One of the big ones this year was the bounce houses. So in the past, we've filled those with volunteers. This year, they're actually supplied by the bounce house supplier. So that was like 26 volunteers that we did not have to find,
wow.
which was awesome.
That's big.
Yeah.
The cost, I assume, went up.
A little bit. It's actually, just because we had paid volunteers, we actually worked with some school and some teams and paid them to come and volunteer. So honestly, we're about a net zero between those two.
I sort of just, it's late, but the sentence that we fill our bounce houses with volunteers just brought joy to my soul, so thank you for that sentence. That's awesome.
Okay, Logan, thank you.
Yep.
All right, I don't know, Bryce already had, he's already had enough time.
Well, get comfortable, because I've got a few pages. No.
Oh, man.
No, this will be quick.
Really, Bryce, do you need to be next?
This will be really quick. I know we're past 9. The bikes at Ira Allen Park, I wanted to give you some feedback since we talked about the e-bikes and the problem. It's not just e-bikes, it's you see them.
Motorized stuff.
The guys have been on it. I mean, they've wrote tickets, they've made a few impounds, they've called a lot of parents. So I wanted to share the feedback. I've got 5 pieces of feedback. 3 are negative and 2 are positive. So we're kind of split right there. All 3 negatives were they didn't feel like their child had a prior warning. And that may or may not be the case. The 2 positives were, I didn't know my kid was out. Thanks for stopping him. I didn't want him on the road. So we're still batting about, we're in the 50-50 area.
You need to count
on
to
that.
3 before you impound some of the vehicles?
There's no law that says we have to, but I would like to have a warning. I really would.
Oh, okay.
But there's no law that requires that. The youngest we've stopped is 7 years old, no helmet, on a bike in the middle of the road, and then a couple 10-year-olds last week on a 4-wheeler. But I think it's got a titch better. But Logan's absolutely right. The hot spot is right down there at Ira Allen, and his park is a hangout. It's a nightly hangout. I see it firsthand. So I'll try to help you with what we can down there, but I know that's frustrating for you. Some of them have come over into our yards and done a few things, but, so I kind of got an idea who might be responsible for some of your trouble down there. With Pioneer Day tomorrow, we're gonna make a video for people that have registered for the parade. When I say we, I'm talking about a few different people in city staff. My role is gonna be the candy throwing rules, the gaps in the parade. There's a couple more, water. Anyway, Lori's got a portion for registering, and then your staff has some as far as the parade goes. We're going to push that pretty hard. We watched some things happen at a previous parade in another city recently where kids were getting lured out into the road with some things. So we definitely don't want a family going through a tragedy, and we certainly don't want it shutting down our program. So we'll make that video tomorrow, and then if I'm understanding right, just the people that register for the parade will get that video, but it could be put out too. And then Jessica, thanks for coming to the Youth Academy. She represented the city council last night, voiced her support. That is Tuesday nights 5 to 8. Next week is at the junior high where they do the active shooter one, so they're gonna hit each other with pepper balls. So if you wanna come get some welts, come on up, we'll got a piece of pizza for you. So that's it.
Do we need to let you know if we want to come to those? Because
No,
I'd like
just
to
pop
come to
in.
as many as I can, but it might be just me dropping in.
It's
okay?
it's pretty low key. It's pretty neat. And you know what's fun? Sorry, I know we're late, but it's good for the officers to see such good kids. So it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun for them on that side. So I'm just going to warn you, we're goofing off, we're having fun, we're laughing. Try to teach them some serious stuff on the side, but we're already teasing each other. So anyway, 5 to 8 on Tuesdays.
Wonderful, thank you, Chief. Anybody else got anything?
One question I wanted to raise was about our involvement in the parade. The Jeeps are awesome, and I actually really look forward to it, but I'm really a little leery about being able to be more available to meet people and see
I
or
walk,
talk
and
to
it's
people.
awesome.
I walk.
I wore a dinosaur last time, so.
Yeah, you did.
That's right. What you're having someone else
Darren,
drive the Jeep.
Darren,
and
you've been
walk.
riding the fire truck, haven't you?
No, not since I've been in city council.
Oh, yeah, but you've been doing a Jeep.
I've been in the Jeep, or I've been walking alongside of the Jeep, but Jenny's not a real big fan of driving the Jeep, so I'm just trying to open the conversation and saying, are we all wanting to do the Jeeps again?
I
if
put
that's
out there,
available?
I don't mind us all being together, but,
Yeah.
and still walking.
If we can get some golf carts, would you guys be
I actually dig that
okay?
idea. What if we all walked together? I ordered 1,500 bouncy balls already. Let's do this. Chief will hate it. Kids go nuts.
No, but I am going to tell you guys are leading the parade and you're the example. So I need you guys to be the example for the rest of the parade and not put me in a bad spot by throwing candy or.
We're still okay to walk along the side?
Oh,
throw
yeah,
candy.
yeah, walk along the side and throw it out all you want,
Yeah.
but be where the crowd's at, so the kids don't have to run out.
Don't
The other
back and
parade I
forth.
referenced, they did that, but they were walking alongside the float and just dropping it, so it still brought kids out.
Yeah.
Go over there and just let the kids stay there, so.
Saw some really scary stuff. I won't say the city, but in a neighboring city, I was at a parade recently, and it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
they're not being a good example.
But I need you guys to be on board with it.
Yeah.
So what am I hearing?
I vote.
I think you could simplify.
I vote,
Oh, you wanna
our,
drive?
our spouses are excused and we
drop it.
walk, yeah.
I've got a cool card that I'm asking to be able to be submitted that they're willing to deck out Mapleton-y, but it would just be a cool car to drive and they slap a logo on it. It's a Sierra car. Have you looked at, go to drivesierra.com. It's an EV off-road vehicle that goes 120. It's the coolest toy, but they'll replace the panels with Small Town Big Heart and put some stuff on it. We'll see if that works, but I
Can't go
was
120, that'll make gaps in the
Not-
parade. No
not
gaps,
on-
no
not
gaps.
there.
Gap last
But it's this
year.
cool, it's
the
this
horses
cool
can't
little
keep
thing, that I think it would be, kids would think it was really cool, so I asked them to try and like submit it as an entry, but they could probably come with us and just have a cool little thing. Nobody will have seen this car before, it's really cool. But I don't need to, Dan always drives the Jeep and Lucas and I walk together, so I don't care. We really don't care. If you want to simplify, I don't need a vehicle, we'll pull our wagon and throw candy and stuff.
Okay.
That said, if you
Okay,
want more
Logan,
entries.
My driver's not coming this year, so I'm walking no matter what. I don't really care what we have.
Okay, I'll talk that over with Logan and I'll get back with you.
If we need more cool vehicles to make the parade interesting, then that adds, that's different, but for me, I don't care.
Okay,
It's
I'll
not-
follow up with you
To
next
me,
week.
it's not about the vehicle, because I think the Jeeps are dang cool. It's
They
just-
are cool.
It's just that.
Yeah, I'll follow up
Putting
with
Jenny in
you.
the driver's seat, she's just like, it's no big deal to me.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just be out there by myself walking.
I'll follow up with you the middle or end of next week with that.
All right, okay, do we have a motion to close
I
or adjourn
will-
and move into a closed
I will
session?
make that motion.
you.
So motion to adjourn the regular meeting and convene a closed session for the purpose of strategy session to discuss a project proposal pursuant to Utah State Code Section 52-4-205
And if we can add one more pending litigation as well.
and pending litigation.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yep.
Garrett, yes.
Aye.
Yeah.